Good morning, Raptor Freaks. Alexiot's here. It's Wednesday morning. It's a whoa Wednesday. A couple things happening yesterday. Little tiny notes of news. I was going to do more on the coaches, but some news popped up last night, so I decided to focus more on that. First of all, we got confirmation yesterday. First of all, housekeeping that Otto Porter has exercised his option, his player option for next year to come back and be with the Raptors. $6.3 million owed to him for next season, and he is on the books. So it's official. Otto Porter exercising his 6.3 million player option to play for the Raptors for next season. So that's what we expected. And that move allows for him to be a trade piece just in case we don't want to bring him back and have him playing for us next year. So that's good news. Yesterday, we got a clip dropped on YouTube all of a sudden. Monique, thank you for sharing it with us in the chat on Facebook early. Chris Boucher has made another Hustle Play podcast in the last couple days, and it will be dropping today. He gave us a teaser clip yesterday, and it was hot fire. Oh my gosh. He basically went on it, and he started talking about how he says everybody off the Raptors bench should have played more. Now, I love the candidness of what he's saying there. I love him coming out and doing kind of a year-end review for a Hustle Play podcast with Mike Roach. No guest. It's just him. So it's going to be very much just talking to Chris about how the season went. I can't wait for this thing to drop today. Knowing Chris's unfiltered, no BS honesty, I'm all about hearing more answers about what happened. Now, some people are not totally happy with what Chris did last night and what he's saying in that preview clip, and that person is NBAChev. It's very interesting how this all happened. Now, meanwhile, Monique and I, superfan Monique and I, are going crazy with the honesty of Chris and just waiting for this thing to drop today because we want to hear more of the truth bombs. Because basically what he said is he didn't agree with how Nick didn't play the bench this year. This is a huge gripe a lot of Raptors Nation has had. And he's talking about it from the inside. He said, and listen, I think this is somewhere where Chev's getting this confused. He's not talking about himself. He's not necessarily the regular bench guy like the Malachi and Delano and Christian and Jeff Doughton and those guys. Chris was very much in the rotation consistently the whole year. So he was getting his minutes. He's not making a complaint for himself. And I think this is something that Chev got misunderstood in what his argument was against him on Twitter. Chris is not talking about himself. He's talking about the rest of the guys on the bench. He got a lot of minutes himself, and he played very consistently, and he deserved them for the most part. There were times when Chris wasn't so consistent, and he didn't get to play late in the game. So he's not really speaking on himself. Many people think that people are just selfish inherently right off the bat. When he's asked that by Mike Roach, he's talking about his teammates. He's not talking about him. He's not putting himself in the whole idea of the question, just so people know. He basically said he thinks that they should have played more. Behind the scenes, if you saw these guys in practice, the way they worked all summer, they worked really, really hard. And, I agree with him. I think that there were many, many opportunities this whole entire 82-game season for Nick Nurse to let these guys get chances. There were teams that we played that weren't as good that had afforded opportunities to let some of our bench guys get more minutes. There were all kinds of opportunities. There's a reason why Nick Nurse has led the league with our starters in minutes for the last 2 years. It's been bullshit. I hate it. I've hated it the whole time. I've always thought him starting and playing the starters way too much has been one of the biggest fallacies and stupid things that he's done this whole time. And I think that this is what Chris is talking to. It's the fact that he rode the starters like crazy. We look at the stats across the NBA, and our players are near the top of the list in minutes every single year. That's not good. We don't want that. And I think there's a ton of leeway where Chris is right, where he could have been bringing guys in and playing them at different times. Koloko, Delano, Malachi, Jeff Doughton Jr. They all should have gotten way more chances, even Ron Harper Jr. So I totally agree with Chris. And this is what happened. Sheb went on Twitter and he talked at Chris. And guess what? Chris responded, and they responded and went back and forth. And I want to read that exchange for you guys. Everybody who is not on Twitter, so you can read this. Now, it started because 13 hours ago, Chev said, I just watched Chris Boucher and he annoyed me. He said, if I ever invest 39 million in somebody and they start a podcast to explain to me why they didn't do their job, it's up. This is bullshit, Chev, because first of all, he's not talking about himself. And nobody said that Chris didn't do his job. If anybody on our bench is absolved of not being a poor bench player, it's Chris, because he consistently came in and contributed and gave us energy and did good things like rebounding and stuff. So in some ways, I totally disagree with Chev on his take. He's saying that he's annoyed with him. Why would you be annoyed with the truth, Chev? Since you're such a truth sayer yourself, why would you be annoyed with Chris just speaking his truth on his podcast? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me, Chev. You should be like, as a content creator, like I am, you should be like, thank you, Chris, for being honest and giving us the truth so we can talk about it in a truthful way. I just don't get this. It's like, why? What is this whole thing about? Like, okay, you're taking it from ownership side or from the team side, as far as like, I pay you 39 million, you should shut up. No, fuck that. Chris is who he is. And Chev, I don't understand this argument. First of all, you're calling out Chris for saying that he didn't do his job. That's fucked up. So Chris, he comes straight at him. He comes out of the woodwork and he says, you know what? He does a Kevin Durant is what he's doing, because this is what Kevin Durant does on Twitter. He comes and talks to people directly when they mention him. Chris is saying, I'm pretty sure you have a good day job, but you still have a podcast, right? You still got podcasts. Shit, you have a video every 5 hours, my dog. Haha, you should understand that more than anybody. It's crazy. Like what Chris is saying to Chev, and this is how he dunks on him, is basically he's saying this. He's like, been listening to your podcast pretty good. You seem to have passion for what you do, and now you have a problem with my podcast with opinions? Damn, brother, I guess you're the only one who has the right to have opinions. And Chris is exactly right. He put Chev in his place. Chev, all you do on your channel is spout opinions and have a podcast. Why the fuck can't Chris do the same damn thing? Especially since he's more qualified as a player. He's damn more qualified than I am, and he's damn for sure more qualified than you to talk about the Raptors and their issues in a podcast. So I don't understand why you would have a problem with him doing what you do, Chev. In some ways, he really points you out as a hypocrite in this. I would never tell Chris not to do Hustle Play podcasts. I would encourage him to do one every day. If he could drop one every day, I would watch one every day. And this is mystifying to me. In some ways, it doesn't seem right. In some ways, I feel like this might have been set up that maybe Chris is trying to help Chev get some more exposure by going and checking out his tweets and talking him up and stuff. In some ways, he is very much helping him. And I think that it's kind of cool. But also, in some ways, it seems like it's kind of messed up. Like, Chev, really? Are you standing that hard on this, Edge? All right, I saw what Fiercey said. And because I didn't watch your retort or anything about it, and I'm sure you filmed a reply last night and put it out on everything that has to do with this. And I'm gonna want to maybe watch it, but I haven't watched it. But I know Fiercey has. So all right, let me read more of these because they went back and forth quite a bit. It's crazy. Chris says to him at one point, "This is so crazy. This whole thing is really funny and crazy." Let's see. When he says, I'm annoyed with Chris says, oh, damn, that's admirable. Join the group. So see, Chris has already alluded this season that he don't mind being a villain and he don't mind talking his truth. And if people going to hate him, people going to hate him. And he's like, boom, yeah, join the group. If you don't like me, that's admirable, bro. Go ahead and not like me. This is crazy. Chev, you should like Chris. What the hell is wrong with you, man? What's going on with you? Chris is like also posting a picture of him going like this on the court, like, I can't do anything. It's crazy. And then, fans are standing up for Chris. And some of them are being stupid too. And then like there's just a lot of interesting back and forth on this as far as like here's another one. Chris says, oh, I'm sorry for answering Raptors fans questions in my free time. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, Chris. If it's a free country, if you really want to get into the arena, you go ahead and do it. There's no problem with that. And then Chev's reply to him about his podcast is, a podcast is not the problem. It's the distraction it creates when you're trying to compete and win. That's what retirement is for. If you win, focus on the fight, not the conversation about the fight. When it's over, it's over. While you have her, you got to give her everything. And then Boucher says to him, "Oh, okay. And you, NBAChev, know better, right? You know everything. The way talk is like you was with us every day. Let's just say this man, I made it made it in a world where you never will be. But I love you, passion for the game. You ain't the only dog out there. See you at practice." I see. This is him putting him in his place. Like seriously, like dude, you don't play in the NBA, chef. You don't live that day to day life that Chris lives. You don't sit there with the rest of the team in the locker room after losses. You don't fucking ride with them on buses. You have no fucking idea in some ways what you're talking about, just like I don't. And I realize this, and this may be the difference between you and me, chef, is that I realize that I'm most of the time just speculating or just going on knowledge from looking from the outside, and I really don't know the truth. And Chris will know the truth a bit better, and that's why we thirst for the Hustle Play podcast. Now, you said something about him creating a distraction during the season. I had not found the Hustle Play podcast to ever be a distraction during the season. When he talks about things on that show, they're very measured and very smart about the subjects they talk about. And he doesn't really say anything that will rock the boat or cause problems. In fact, this one that he did that he's releasing today is after Nick, and he can do this because this is a different period of time. They're not playing anymore. So it's not going to cause a distraction. There's a difference between this particular episode and all the ones he did this whole entire season, because this episode is post-season. And during the season, none of his episodes were a distraction or causing a problem for the team. They never did. And it's bullshit that you said that, because it's not true. They were not ever a distraction. I don't remember ever hearing any controversy because of something that Thaddeus or Coloco or Alvin Williams or any of those guys that went on his show caused anything outside of it. So it's pretty crazy. It is pretty crazy. I love that that this back and forth happened, because in some ways it shows us that Chris is watching people and checking people out and stuff like that. So hey, whatever, I hope he does find this channel. And Chris, know that the Raptor Freak cult is a real one. That, like you're saying here, as far as like, there's a quote that he has also here. Chev Set tries to tell him, "I don't hate you. I hate losing." As all fans of a team does. We all hate losing, Chev. This is like this is like dumb. It just goes without saying. You're a sports fan. Of course you hate losing. This is dumb. But teams go up and down. You should know this, Chev. We're a Knicks fan. And you know that there's a wave that you ride as a franchise. And we're just riding those waves, man. And in some ways, our waves aren't as crazy and big and low as, some teams that go through things in this league. So it's kind of crazy for you to say that you hate losing, and that's why you're mad at Chris. So why the fuck are you going to be mad at just Chris for the losing? I'm telling you, man, a lot of it is on Nick Nurse why we lost this year. And being mad at Chris for it is kind of stupid in some ways. It's like a lot of this is really dumb what Chev's doing. Chris is also saying, guess what? You can't flip-flop. If you're a true fan, brother, they're going to take good about us again. And that's how it works. I understand your frustration. We ain't happy out here too. And that's what I'm saying. But Chev's saying there's no flip-flopping with me, but I got to be honest, when I support something, we're better at 44 and 41 in this NBA climate. Well, see, now he's starting to backtrack and saying, yeah, we are better for a 41 and 41 team. We should have been better. They were sabotaged by our coach, Chef. If you can't understand that there's Nick Nurse was actively sabotaging our team this season, holding it back, and in a lot of ways, it's not the players to be blamed for this. I love that Chris is saying this. You can't flip-flop if you're a true fan. This is the damn truth. There's too many Raptors Nation people that flip-flop between hating and loving the team, depending on whether they win or not. And I'm sick of that shit. That's why I built this channel, the Raptor Freak channel, is because I'm so sick of fair weather real fans. You're not a real fan if you flip-flop. And that's what Chris is calling him out on right here. And that's why we don't flip-flop here. We are true blue for the Raptors no matter what on this channel. And we, listen, I will be critical, but it's within reason. And it's not like this kind of crap that's going on with him and Chev last night. So it's crazy. He also says you can't talk your way out of the work. You got to do or didn't do. Results don't lie. We know what we saw. Chev, what are you doing? What are you saying about Chris's work? Chris works one of the hardest workers on the team. We see that. He doesn't never stop working on the court. And I know he's the same way in practice because I saw him practice last year in October in a closed practice, and he went all out in the practice way more than anybody else in the practice. This man is working. You got to understand. In some ways, he's absolved of some of the stuff that you think about in this team because in some ways he did his role. He did exactly what he was asked of, and he did it right. And he showed up to practice, and he worked hard every day. So I don't understand what you're saying about he needs to talk his way out of work. This man fucking did everything he was asked of this whole season. Like seriously, Chev. Like what are you saying here? And Chris says to him, "Oh, you right, you right. See you at practice, coach." Like what the fuck? That's what I'm saying. I was at practice last year. I went to the coach's open house here in Toronto at the Scotiabank Arena with like 200 other people, and I watched them practice. I watched the closed practice of the Raptors, an entire one. I saw exactly how they went down. And like I said, Chris is working his ass off in that practice. So, Chev, you don't even know what you're talking about, bro. If anybody on this team can be like exempt from not working hard or any of this bullshit about the bench or something like that, it is Chris Boucher. He's not a bad bench player. He was, in fact, one of our few. So I don't get this coming after him. It's so crazy. Maybe it's just for drama. Maybe it's like WWE. He just wants some people to follow Chev for him or something. I don't know. Chev saying we're in pain watching the playoffs and we can't get away from it. Get over yourself, Chev. We didn't make the playoffs, so what? It is what it is. This year sucked. We had a down year. We'll come back next year. You're so in pain because you're watching other teams play in the NBA playoffs. Whatever, bro. That just seems so silly. And Chris is saying, "Oh, I'm in pain too, brother." And I believe Chris. I believe Chris more than I believe Chev. Chev, go on with your life. Your Knicks are doing well. Go flip flop back to your hometown team and get with the Knicks for a little while, bro. And forget about the Raptors for this playoff series. Come back and cover the Raptors later and be in the Raptors Nation. But you got the Knicks to root for, Chev, and that's more natural for you. So you don't need to be in pain like Chris is. Chris is definitely in pain right now. And I'll bet you a big part of this Hustle Play podcast is going to get dropped today, is going to be talking about the pain of the end of the season. Yeah, I bet you he may even talk about DeAndre DeRozan. He may talk about all kinds of crazy stuff about why that game we lost a 19-point lead at home in a do or die situation in a play-in game. It's going to be illuminating. I can't understand why anybody would hate this. Why would you hate a player being honest like this? We've gotten to this point in society where things have developed to the point where I got a fucking YouTube channel. You got one, Chev, and Chris Boucher has a podcast on Yahoo. This is open, like great. This is communication. This is the ability for people to be content creators and create things, have the avenues to do it. So there's nothing wrong with this. In fact, free speech, we should never poo-poo it or tell it to go away. This is important. And somebody like Chris may really need this outlet or likes this outlet or enjoys it. So I don't get it, man. It's a very anti-Chev kind of argument coming from Chev. In some ways, it makes him a big hypocrite in some ways, saying that Chris shouldn't be doing a podcast. Come on, man. I don't want to go after Chev too much, but I know that there's going to be comments and stuff like that. But that's basically the gist of it. If you guys have any questions about the whole misunderstanding between Chev and Chris Boucher on Twitter last night, you can go look at Chris's Twitter account and you'll see the replies and the back and forth that I just read to you. And you can see all this stuff that's going on. All right, let me read your comments. I'd like to not ignore you guys anymore. I see you filled it up already. Love seeing all the names, and especially Raptor Freak OG Lumpy Rex is in the house. This is a great Raptor Freak. Somebody who's around Raptors Nation, all kinds of different places. We miss you, Lumpy, and we're glad when you drop in and say hi to us. Chev needs to watch his mouth, is what Lumpy is saying. This is somebody who knows stuff about Raptors. Lumpy Rex is often read on Talking Raptors. He's in a lot of comment sections. This is a true blue Raptors fan, and this is somebody who very much cares about the Raptors in the right ways. And I appreciate Lumpy Rex's comment this morning. Fiercey is listened to Chev's retort, and I want to hear what she says. Good morning, family. I'm not on Twitter, so I listened to Chev's clip for his perspective. He is saying the bench would have deserved more minutes had they played well. Agreed, but I also believe in development. I don't understand this because when did we get to see them very much? I mean, they didn't get very many chances. See, there's different coaches in different in the league that have different levels of using their bench, and Nick has zero levels of using the bench compared to a lot of people. The chances just weren't there. I don't understand why Chev thinks that, oh, they were just so bad, that's why they didn't play. That's bullshit. There are useful ways to use these guys. And in fact, it kind of speaks to Nick Nurse's unimaginative way of doing coaching. He was very much had a template, and he very was structured with exactly like just overplay the starters. He never really thought about like, oh, this is a light bulb moment to maybe put Delano out and maybe give him like a 5-minute run at this moment or something like that. He never really got creative with integrating Coloco more in certain ways. And he definitely damn for sure let Jeff Doughton sit there and use up all of his eligibility as a two-way player this season, only playing him 25 out of the 50 games he suited up this year. That was a huge fail right there. And there were many, many times in many, many games where I saw where he could have put those guys in. So I completely disagree with his stance that they weren't good enough to play. We have no fucking idea because he didn't even discover. And even if they weren't that good enough to play, there were moments and places where he could have got minutes for them, bought minutes for them, and he chose not to. You know, the end of the season, the last two games against Charlotte, there was a lot of time there that could have been eaten up by bench guys instead of playing our starters still at certain times. There was garbage time, but there could have been way, way more. Joe Weezy, we didn't get to see enough of Joe Weezy this year. And yeah, I agree. I totally believe in development, and so does Masai. And that's why Nick Nurse is out of work right now. Yeah. Thank you for watching Chev's clip, Fiercey, and letting us know what he's saying. And that's his argument. Well, that's silly. Nick Nurse did not play no bench in 3 years now, Chev. You know that. How the fuck are we supposed to develop a bench all of a sudden if he isn't even trying? Space Cadet saying, I love how the Raptors freak was somehow brought into that discussion. Laugh out loud. Hope some people subscribe. Maybe Chris is watching right now. That'd be fun. Chris Boucher, if you do find my channel, just know that we're the real ones and you can watch us every day and you will not get pissed off. If you do, let us know, and like you did, Chev, and put us back in pocket. But most of the time, we are the real ones. We're the positive ones, and we do truly support you guys no matter what. And I appreciate you, Space Cadet. I don't know what's going on. Maybe I will get some more traffic from there. Somebody linking me on their YouTube, on the Twitter. Let's see. Nako's here. Nako's saying, Chev and Boucher aside, always a good day when the Celtics get embarrassed. Trey with a stellar offensive game. Tatum with a really bad offensive game. Yeah, the one game that I didn't think was going to go that way went that way. And the Hawks staying alive, beating the Celtics in Boston on their own court with a big, huge last second 30-foot three-pointer by Trae Young, showing those guts. This ice Trae, woo, too cold, woo. And like he hit it right in Jaylen Brown's face with 2 seconds to go. And fantastic work by Trae Young, really carrying the Hawks last night without DeJounte Murray. And DeJounte, after the game, very exultating on Twitter. Hallelujah. I get another chance with my suspension for bumping Giamidis. I get another chance to play the Celtics on another day. So I'm very shocked, honestly, that Atlanta was able to extend this series and keep it going. Good job. In some ways, the Sixers are very happy with you. And also, that you guys lived to another day. And that's impressive, Hawks. Honestly, you can extend this series or even mess them up. Hey, I don't mind wearing some Atlanta Hawks gear on this channel. Definitely don't mind that at all. But yeah, that was fantastic. And good job by the Hawks extending the series. In the other games last night, 2 teams eliminated. Denver putting the Minnesota Timberwolves out last night. And also the Phoenix Suns taking care of business against the Clippers and putting them out too. Very disappointing in Clipperland. Another wasted postseason with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George sitting on the bench. And always, as the last couple of years have been, Tyronn Lue comes into the press conference and said, if we could just have had our guys healthy, what could have been? What could have been? That sounds like a broken record every single year. It's really weird that all the time Kawhi and Paul George just can't play in the postseason. That sucks. Oh, well, Steve Ballmer, I guess you're never, ever going to get that chip if your best players are never healthy. That's just how it is. John Doe saying both Chris and Chev are right. Yes, the bench should play more. Yeah, I think that they should too. I just think that, like, what's going on with Nick Nurse and the bench? Like, why did he do it this way? It's really been this way for 3 years. It was that way the year of Tampa. It was that year last year, and it was that like this definitely this year. And that is a big, huge part of why he got fired. Is that he just didn't give opportunities for these guys to ingratiate themselves to more rotational minutes. And if they got it for a little while, like Malachi might for a little while, well, it went away after a while. And I mean, within reason, sure. We can, if we want to take the litmus test of the bench and it's Malachi Flynn, that's not totally fair because he's a streak shooter. And you can look at him playing very well with the defense and the ball handling and running the team without making the shots. And he's playing solidly. But if you see him miss like 3 or 4 shots, and you'll be like, well, fuck, we don't have any bench because Malachi can't shoot. That's an individual thing for him. And each of these guys need to be graded or kind of like looked at in their own different roles and what they're supposed to do. That's another way that he failed. He didn't give them roles to have little responsibilities in the game to come out there and take care of them. That develops confidence. That develops guys to play better. Baby steps. You got to say, okay, just go out there and get me 4 rebounds right now, Coloco. And, give them some little goals where they can succeed on those. And that's all that matters. And then they can build and build and build. And then all of a sudden they're way more consistent, constructive, rotational player. But Nick didn't allow a path to any of that. And that's why I blame him. You guys can blame the talent of the bench, but fuck that. We get retooled. We have good guys. You can just got to use them better, Nick. And using certain guys so much really cuts the water off for everybody else. And that's just what Chris was saying yesterday. Is that, he wishes everybody on the bench had gotten to play more. And I do too. I'm completely with Chris. I could even make the argument that Precious didn't play enough this season. In some ways, Precious was more like rotation last year. And this year, there were times where he really was put to the end of the bench and treated more like Jeff Doughton and Malachi than Chris. And I didn't like that. I think that he's too good of a player, talented wise, and he can do so much that you can't treat him like that. You need to have him on the court at all times because he's just really good. So, oh man, it's crazy. I may have to go watch Chev today just to see exactly what he's saying specifically. But the optics of what I see on Twitter is just like Chris is dunking on him. Like, seriously, bro, you got a podcast? You're going to tell this man not to have a podcast? Come on, Chev. Come on, free country, bro. He's Canadian, man. He's here in Toronto with me, bro. And we want to make podcasts in Canada too, eh? We want all to be able to do that, not just in New York, bro. All right, let's see. Trevor's saying, good morning. It looks like Boston Marathon fight with Atlanta. What a basketball game last night. If Atlanta takes game 6 win, I think Boston will be in trouble. Well, that'll set up a game 7 in Boston. Woo! But game 7s in Boston are fun. Yeah, I'd like to see Atlanta take game 6 in Atlanta and then have to force a game 7 in Boston. They've already said that the game 1 of the next round against whoever wins the series against Philly will be on Monday. So they'll play in Atlanta tomorrow night. And then on Saturday, they'll play game 7 in Boston if necessary. And the first game of the second round, Philadelphia against the winner of Boston or Atlanta, will be on Monday night. So that is for sure. That's the timing with all that. Randolph is here. Good to see my good friend Randolph Phillips bringing the blessings. Beloved Raptor Freaks, most informative game. Good morning. Our expectations are high for our team's future. But when you are down, there's nowhere else to go but up. I wish I could say this for sure, and I want to believe. I really, really do, Randolph. I think that this is true. I think in our case, this is true. Like if we were worse next year with a new coach, I'd be like, what the fuck? It will be really weird. Like we just need fresh ideas, fresh usage of players like Siakam, Van Vliet, Barnes, Anunoby, really new ideas of how to use them more effectively on offense, obviously. And we can see huge improvements. Because in some ways, we were really stifled by our crazy defensive scheme that made us run ragged on the other end. Save some breath for the offensive end with a new coach. Yeah, I'm all about that. Yesterday we were talking about Mark Jackson, And I kind of went and looked at him a little bit more. There's a reason why he hasn't been given another coaching job. It's because he said a lot of really crazy shit when he was in Golden State when he lost his job. He said some non-PC kind of things. And it's made everybody kind of like put him kind of on a list to not hire him as a coach again. So that's kind of why Mark Jackson hasn't coached since 2014, besides the fact that he's also been focusing on his broadcasting career more. So I don't know if he's actually a viable candidate. He's 58 now. And at this point, if somebody hasn't given him a coaching job, why the fuck should the Raptors give him a coaching job this summer right now? Seriously. Because in some ways, he's not really in the coaching world. He's more in the broadcasting world. And that's something that's important. You want to be cutting edge with coaching ideals and strategies. You got to be in the game. And you got to be practicing it under greats like Budenholzer and Spoelstra and Nurse and Kerr. And, if you're not like that, then you're not cutting edge. And that's why I can't endorse Mark Jackson at this point, because he's not really cutting edge with coaching ideals and what's going on in the game, because he's commentating. He's not coaching. And there was stuff he said, like he was homophobic at the end of his tenure with the Golden State Warriors. In fact, he got upset about two Warriors employees that were gay that were working near him. And this is part of the reason why he had to leave. And people don't know that. It's actually on his Wikipedia, which is crazy. You can go look at his Wikipedia and it'll tell you exactly why he's not coaching anymore. So yeah, interesting stuff there. MSJ saying classic stuff. NBAChev, is he wrong? Chris went 18 points per game per 36 minutes. So yeah, Chev's off base. And yeah, the bench should have played 5 to 7 minutes more, but I love the interaction of fan and player. I love it. I do too. Listen, you go, Chev. You got Chris to come and talk to you directly. In some ways, that's fun. I wouldn't do that, though. I'm not calling out any players on here. If they came here and got back at me because of something I said, I would not want that, because I love all those guys. I don't want to be at odds with any of them. I know that I'm critical of them at times, but it's really trying to be constructively and fair, and in ways that isn't like attacking them or saying certain things. Like in some ways, what Chev's doing is attacking Chris's character as far as not working hard or like not playing good enough. And I think that's not fair to Chris. I think that in particular, him on our team was really kind of one of our better guys in really bad parts of the year. And he was kind of carrying us when we were really bad. And there were some games where I could bring up my 3 stars Excel sheet and see how many times Chris Boucher was one of the 3 stars with a good effort off the bench when the rest of the guys were absolute dog shit. So in some ways, I really don't think coming at Chris in particular is fair, because he may be one of the more consistent Raptors this whole entire season. Fun guy saying, I'll be really pissed if Atlanta pulled that upset, because Philly would sweep the next round, but would have no chance against Boston. I'd be really pissed if Atlanta pulled the upset. Yeah. In some ways, maybe they want that. I mean, in some ways, I'm wondering, who are they writing the scripts for? We know they're writing a script for the Lakers. We know they're writing a script for the Celtics. We know they may be writing a script for the Sixers. They could be writing a script for the Knicks. They're not writing a script for the Bucks, that's for sure. It's crazy. Let's see. All right, let's see. Shir Khan saying, good morning, Raptor Freak family. Love the Slimduck podcast. Totally agree with him. Coaching staff should do more to develop, like playing bottom of the roster players from time to time. And just not garbage time, deep to the bench. All right, this is the biggest reason why our bench fails. To people that are critical that we don't have any bench, it's because Nick puts them out in the deep end. He doesn't give them anything, and then he makes all 5 of them come out into the game and hold hands and say, all right, you guys got to go in it as a unit and come out there and do capable things, when none of y'all ever play any at all. It's like I've been saying, you can mix the bench with the starters, and you can get quality minutes out of bench players by hiding them with the rest of the starters in certain places. You don't have to sub 4 guys in or 3 guys in, Nick Nurse, each time, and then your unit looks really bad quality-wise because of the drop-off in talent. That is one of the biggest problems with this whole thing, is Nick set them up to fail because he threw them all out there at the same time. When you fucking put Jeff, Ron, and Delano out there all at the same time as the bench unit, they're going to fucking suck. That's why you have to pick one of them a game or something like that. Say, all right, tonight I'm going to play Delano with the starters a lot and give them like 15 minutes of burn hidden with the starters. And then you can actually get their play up higher. It's this wholesale like bench hockey substitutions where you're bringing in lines second line bench that's just not as good as the starters, we're going to see a drop off in talent. So in some ways, Nick is setting them up to fail immediately, and that is part of the reason why he didn't develop anything, is because they're not going to be in a situation where they can succeed, because he's given them the wrong tools and the wrong group is out there. So that's a big part of it, is that he would play too many of the bench guys all at once and they'd suck. If he played just a few of them with more of the rotation guys that are really doing well, they would look better out there. You could hide them better. In some ways, I was upset because he played too young a team at times. When he played Koloko and Scotty together at times earlier in the season, a lot of rookie mistakes, a lot of youngster mistakes were being made. And that's part of it also. You have to have a balance between guys who've been playing in the league like 5 or 6 years with the guys who've only been in the league for like 1 or 2 years. And when you have a unit that's almost all 23 and under, yeah, they're going to suck out there. They're not going to be as good. And that's the thing. Nick was so horrible at balancing things. Very heavy on the starters, very heavy on certain players getting so many minutes, and then the rest, nothing for anybody else. And that's why they didn't develop. That's why Masai was upset. And that's why Nick got fired. G saying Chev has an apology video coming out. Okay, I'll bet. I mean, listen, whatever. It's a free speech. You guys going at it. It's giving me something to talk about today. Thank you. I don't want anybody to think I'm anti-Chev. I love Chev. I just think that he's off base with coming after Chris, and that he doesn't deserve the way he's attacking him. It's a free country. Let the man have Hustle Play podcast. And I appreciate it. I'm so glad he's doing Hustle Play podcast. In fact, I can't wait for it to drop today. I want to hear the rest of what he has to say. It's probably an hour-long podcast about this season, and it could be so much that's in it. And fuck, he doesn't work for us anymore, Nick Nurse. So in some ways, he has more freedom to be critical of what Nick Nurse did, Chev. That may be why you're upset, is because he's going to be critical about Nick. And, well, I'd like to hear the reasons why. Nick was critical towards Chris, and it helped him grow. So you know what? Chris Boucher is just paying it back. He can be critical towards Nick, and maybe that'll help him grow as a person also. The teacher can always learn from the student, and vice versa. Yeah, Abandon's here. Good to see Abandon. It's been a bit, my friend, Abandon. We were abandoned by you for a little bit, but you're back, and I appreciate it. Good day. Time to move past Nurse, thankfully. I understand what Chris is saying, and seen this with Nurse at times. Before the ring, he struggled with adjusting the roster mid-game. Coaches just have weaknesses. They have blind spots. They have things that they just don't dial into in the game. Maybe he's more worried about schemes and what the flow is and how things are going in the game than he's worrying about, well, this could be an opportunity for me to utilize Delano's specific unique talents in this game situation and actually get him some quality minutes that matter. That's part of what has to be in the coach's head at times, is opportunities as they arise. In some ways, he needed to look at certain players like Jeff Doughton Jr., Malachi, Koloko, and say, these guys have specialty, like really good bonuses that they can do on the court. Obviously, Koloko with the low post presence, the rim protection, and the shot blocking, that can be utilized in specific cases on the court when there's things that you need it for. Like, it's something like in football, you need to be more defensive. You get defensive players out there to stop the run because this is going to happen. Well, that's what I'm saying. If you're up, you have a lead, you want to get that defender out there so he can make it harder for them to score. It's like you can really think about Delano and his specific skills, and how can you utilize those specific skills for certain in-game situations and then crack it open and use it in those in-game situations. I didn't see any of that kind of creativity with Nick Nurse and the rotations and when he subbed guys in for that kind of specific stuff. And those opportunities are always there for any kind of player on the team. I don't care how bad they are. You could figure out one good thing that they're really good at and really focus on it and put them in situations to utilize that to be very good. Like Joe Easy, utilize him in a bunch of screens around Pirtle and boom, make a bunch of threes. There's all kinds of ways he could have used these guys way better. In fact, when he played Joe Easy, they just freeze him out. He'd never, ever get shots. They would just shoot themselves. And they never actually worked it towards him to make the shots. Well, Nick, could you have called Joe Easy's number and said, get the ball to Joe? I want this play to be for Joe. I never saw shit like that. Joe would be out there running cardio when he'd get the little bits of time when he'd play. Nobody would even see him, and he'd barely ever get shots up. In the last game he did, but he missed them all. And that's because he had no confidence built. for the whole entire year. So yeah, man, we can go after Nick. He's not a part of our team anymore, and it's fine. People will be upset. Oh, but I love Nick. And how can you talk about him like this? Well, it doesn't hurt us. And in some ways, we needed a patsy and a scapegoat, and he is definitely that. I will admit he's probably going to get more of the blame than he probably deserves. But we need to do damage control, and we need to go forward as a franchise. It's good to have somebody to blame. Trust me. And we don't want to blame everybody because this doesn't help us. It really doesn't. John Doe is saying also both Chev and Chris are correct. On one hand, the bench is garbage and cannot help the team win now, so Nurse didn't play them. But Chris is also correct. They should have played for pure development. Well, this was part of the conflict this year, John, between Masai and Nick. And could have forecast this a couple years ago when they had end of season press conferences where they said very different things. Nick was talking about, I want to win now. And Masai was talking about, I want patience in developing our guys, and we may be a couple years away from something. Well, that is the ultimate conflict right there. Is Nick was going all out to try and win every single game, no matter what, to the detriment of developing the young guys. Meanwhile, Masai was like, I don't care if we win as much. We're going to lose a lot right now. And in some ways, you need to just find the time for these guys, no matter what, win or lose. Well, Nick wasn't wired that way. He had to go and win all out, and that's why he overplayed his starters too much. So in some ways, and this is why Masai is saying he's going to be more hands-on and involved with the coach and what they're doing instead of laying back and just letting them do it. He's going to be more involved now and be like, kind of like, these are benchmarks for development that you need to do for the new coach that comes in that we hire. So it's pretty good. I think it's going to be a good situation. More Masai breathing down the neck of the coach will be a good thing. Trust me. It'll be a good thing. Now, I don't believe this. I think that every NBA team has a different level of talent on their bench, but every team has a pretty good bench to a degree. They wouldn't be in the NBA if they weren't. And I think that it's just, we think that our bench is garbage because Nick Nurse presented them and played them in a way that made them look like garbage. Just like I said 5 minutes ago, you can look for their strengths and what they can do and put them in roles to succeed where they'll look much better. In the old NBA, it was very much, some guys were niche players and they just have one good thing that they did really, really well. And it was very clear what they were going to come out and do on the court, whether it's rebounding or whatever. And that was perfectly fine. Well, in today's NBA, everybody has to be good at everything. And it's muddled everything as far as roles and who should be taking what task and taking care of it. And that's part of the problem right now is we need, you can give roles, very specific roles to people like Malachi, Delano, Christian, and, Jeff Doughton Jr. And that's what he needed to do. Give them specific roles to excel in and forget about being all around great, all around players. But Nick's system demanded them be all-around great talents, and that's why he overplayed the starters. So it's crazy. MSJ saying the thing is, when is NBAChev ever going to invest $39 million in anyone or anything, or touch anything close to $39 million, maybe 3,900? Chris has a podcast hobby, and I love his shows. Weird take. Yeah, I think it's a weird take by Chev too. I mean, maybe he just did it for drama. Maybe I don't know. In some ways, I feel like it was prearranged. Why would Chris even go there and see him? Well, we know that Chris is watching people like us. And Chris, if you come and watch me, hey, we love you, Slimduck. You're the best, man. And I love that you live in Toronto in the off season and you're still around right now. And just awesome things, man. You're a great Canadian, and I want you on Team Canada. That's why I'm wearing my Team Canada shirt today, is because I want to put Chris's name in the ears of all the basketball people. Maybe Chris is pissed at Nick, partly because of Team Canada, because he's not on Team Canada and he hasn't been invited. And, that could be awkward if he does make Team Canada, if he absolutely slam dunks Nick Nurse today on his Hustle Play podcast. That could be very awkward if he does get named to Team Canada suddenly and he comes out with a crazy podcast today. We'll have to see. But yeah, I'm with you, MSJ, on this. And I'm not even worried about the money or the followers or anything like that. Chev's allowed to do whatever he wants and say whatever he wants. But if you say something and somebody don't like it and they want to come save something back to you like Chris did last night, well, be prepared for that too. Fiercely saying, happy for Otto staying with us. The point of podcasts is to voice your opinion. So to each their own. I'm not buying into back and forth online arguments. No time for that. I'm too grown for it. I don't normally like this stuff, but when it's a situation like this with a player who's on Twitter, it is entertaining and different. Kevin Durant provides all kinds of crazy entertainment on Twitter just with his going back and forth with people. People want to paint him as like crusty and mad and angry, and he's on there kind of like getting in the comments saying, "What I don't understand why everybody thinks I'm such an angry, upset person. I'm very happy." Well, why do you spend so much time in the comment section with trolls then, Kevin? You know, it's fun. It's like he loves that kind of stuff and he enjoys it. In some ways, it's not like ugly or not fun to him. He likes the ugliness and the kind of like disagreement. Kevin Durant. So in some ways, I think Chris is a lot like Kevin in this respect, that he's got the balls to go out there. He's going to go see what people are saying about him, and he will reply and he will talk back to you. I'm all about that. I'm all about that. All right, Cool Cats here. Good morning, Raptor Free crew. I love that our front office and players are listening to fans' feedback. It leads to growth on both sides. Love the discourse between Boucher and Chev as well. Me too. I mean, I listen. I'm not mad at Chev. I just think that this is a weird take, and in some ways, I can't agree with him that Chris should not be doing the Hustle Play podcast. I just can't agree with that. I cannot agree with that. I think that it's a godsend, honestly, as a Raptor fan, to have that open insight and open like truth from Chris on a regular basis. That I love that podcast. In fact, that's my favorite podcast in the world right now because it's a real unfiltered Raptors podcast done by a Raptor that really nothing's off the table. He will talk about anything on it. So what is not to like? And I think Cool Cat's exactly right. The connection and the ability to communicate with the front office as fans, like having a channel like Chev and I do, is probably a lot more easier at this point. Like we've speculated, sometimes we come up with so many ideas on this channel. They could be listening just to have a little bit of a fan think tank on our channel for what do the fans think? Well, let's go see what Raptor Freak channel is saying. And then they can just check in with us and kind of see where we're at with different subjects. And because I'm doing this daily, they can really get a quick reaction on everything that happens. They could be coming in here and looking at what we're saying about the coach candidates. They could be coming in here and say, well, what's the fan perception of this coach? This is really easy market research for them if somebody's making the content and like really expressing it. So I'm totally with Cool Cat. Free expression and the ability and the freedom to do YouTube channels and to talk. And Chris Boucher's Hustle Play is always good because the truth needs to be out there more than ever because there's way so much out there, and some of it's hidden in opinion, some of it's just bullshit, some of it is lies, but the truth is still out there. And in some ways we still need to kind of try and suss out and get to the truth in an unruly crazy world with a lot of information that's just bullshit out there. Let's see, Abandon saying, don't Danny Green still have that podcast? Also, I'm known as above so below. Okay, so you're just on a different name right now. I got you. I think, yeah, Danny Green's still doing the green room with his buddy there. Forget his name. But yeah, I think that he's still doing that podcast. I'm pretty sure he has continuously done that podcast at every stop where he goes from place to place. I'm pretty sure he's still doing it. G said, Chev said he's going to make it right. Okay, good. I'm sure he will. And maybe that's part of the whole arc of the story. It's like, I'll admit when I'm wrong, Chris, and I'll come back and I'll say that. Lumpy saying blaming Chris is straight stupid. I agree with this. Listen, I could blame players on this team, and Chris is not high on the list. I can blame like the top 5 guys on this team that I want to blame for things for this season, and Chris's name's not going to be on that list. It's not going to be in the top 5 at least. He may be like number 10 as far as like Raptors that I blame for this season. So yeah, and I'm not even going to make that list, y'all. If you want me to make that list, I'm not going to. Space Cadet saying, I wonder if Chris will spill anything else about Nurse. That's the other thing. Well, Chev, don't be worried about controversy now. They're not playing. This isn't a Nick Nurse pre-Philadelphia press conference. No, that's the thing that damaged our season. Was the worst cast of anything, not a podcast or anything. It was a press cast. Sitting in front of microphones in Philadelphia. That is what destroyed our season. That was the single most destructive thing that happened this whole entire season to end our season the way it did. Nick Nurse checking out 2 weeks before the season's actually over. Yeah, that's where you need criticism right there. Let's keep going. Country Kong's here. Good to see Country Kong. Scotty Barnes, Twitch family, unite. Good morning, Rabbit Freaks. I can't lie. I laughed a lot at the start, but after a while, I thought Chev was going too hard at Chris. I see his point, but it's not that serious. Laugh out loud. Also, I wish he'd curse less. You know, I love Chev's charm and his passion is undeniable. And there's a lot of things about Chev that I absolutely admire. But in some ways, certain people get after certain people. I know in some ways people may be like, oh, Lex, you're too hard on Pascal. We all have our different things, like Pensair has with Fred. And, maybe, Will Lou had a problem with Chris Boucher for a while. And this was a weird situation where he called them out. Chris called him out for talking about his body weight. And it was really unfair. And there was a real learning moment for Will Lou, and he matured a bit about like talking about people's body type or body weight. It was really unfair towards Chris. So once again, unfair criticism towards Chris from somebody who's just out there in the media. And there was a learning lesson for Will Lou there also. So maybe Chev will get it, and not as the highest level as far as what happened with Will Lou and Chris Boucher, but maybe Chev's going to get a little enlightened a little bit further in some ways. And in some ways, Chev's probably really happy because he's engaged with conversation with Chris Boucher directly. So that in some ways, there's something about that. So maybe I would dial it down, Chev, real quick, because you got his attention. You may really want to watch your criticism of him, and just kind of make sure it's very fair. I know how to criticize Chris where it's fair, and maybe you got to find that line yourself too. Let's see. Nako's saying Precious would probably be better if Nurse gave him more accountability. Well, in some ways, Precious really is this amazing piece of clay that you can mold in some different directions. Like he doesn't have to be, he could be a couple different kinds of players going forward in his career. He's so young still that he can be molded. And that's part of development, is molding the player into the kind of player that you want him to become. Siakam early on, I thought he would be in the mold of like just a very active, athletic rebounder and defender, not a scorer. Well, they knew that he could be a scorer, so they started molding him into a scorer's mold when he was young. And that's what I'm talking about. So we got to watch how we mold Precious's clay, because in some ways it will really kind of determine maybe partly what his NBA career turns out to be like. And, I think that structure would be good for Scotty and Precious, just to have more like mini goals throughout their whole game. So they really kind of get satisfaction from knowing they're doing their job right. And in some ways, the way Nick was running the team is really unclear. Like they do a lot of work and do a lot of things, but there would be a lot of heartache and sadness because even though they work their ass off, we'd still get beat by a 3-pointer in the corner. So in some ways, you want to give them a chance to succeed, meet the mini goals so that they get like inertia of feeling good and success. And then it adds up and gets to bigger levels of mini goals and even greater success. And that's what development is. And in some ways, I don't know, Precious has been developed pretty good in the last 2 years, but he didn't get it developed this year as much as he did in the first year he was with the Raptors. And that's what I want to see. I want to see Precious continue to get molded to be the kind of player that can be the absolute top best player that he could possibly be. Now, is that like a Giannis? Is that like a real superstar level? In some ways, you don't want to cap him because you want to really allow him to expand and grow to the highest possible level of star in the league as he can be. So we'll have to see. Wayne's saying we all like listening to Chev, but he's bugging sometimes. I will never agree with his criticism of Fred for so-called business reasons. Great content, though. Yeah. It's not bad Raptors content. And I appreciate him being a part of our nation. I really do. I don't want anybody to get twisted that I'm not a Chev fan. I definitely am. It's just that, once again, like we can call out players for making boneheaded plays on the court. I'm going to call out Chev for making a boneheaded take on Chris Boucher yesterday. That's all. That's all it is. John Doe's saying Chris works hard, but I think they should look to move a bunch of these forwards who can't shoot. Bench was 32nd in points per game. Almost nobody did their job. Yeah, John, I can get behind that. I think that you're right. We do, in some ways, we have these guys, they're all great athletes, but a lot of them have to develop jump shots. Now, OG's kind of developed his finally. Pascal's getting closer. He's still got a couple of levels of consistency he can get with his 3-point shot and just different kinds of situational shooting that he could get to another level with his shooting. But these guys can be better shooters. And Scotty is definitely in the very early stages of getting to become a better shooter over time. But that's why we need a different kind of player on our team, a born shooter, a shooter that's not an athlete that has to learn how to shoot, a guy who just comes in that's already good at shooting. And that's kind of what we need to get target in the draft and maybe in free agency this summer. And that will improve our 3-point shooting. Masai very specifically said we need 3-point shooting in his end of season press conference. So I expect like he does what he says, and he says what he does. He's going to go out there and get us some good, better 3-point shooters this summer. Now, some of them are already on staff. Joe Weezy, Otto Porter. If they play more roles next year, we may have a jump in 3-point shooting because the new coach utilizes the 3-point shooters on the team better in a way that makes it seem like, wow, we have 3-point shooting all of a sudden this year, and we didn't really change too much. I have a feeling that some of that kind of stuff is going to happen next year, that we're going to magically be better at certain things, partly because Nick was holding us back. Let's see. Kenny's here. Good to see Kenny. It's been a bit. One of the originals, Raptor Freaks from the very beginning. Chev is pulling back this morning. It's amazing how much controversy just for Chris speaking his truth. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, I don't think he expected Chris to directly respond to him. And that's probably what caught this thing all off guard. When I saw it, I was like, wait, is that actually Chris? Because, the blue checks are gone. And I went and looked. I'm like, well, I'm already following him. So yeah, it is really Chris because it's like, well, I can't tell if the blue check's not there for sure, but his voice and me already having been following him, that is the real Chris Boucher talking to him. So yeah, it is what it is, and I don't know if Chev expected to get a direct response from him. That's crazy. Cowboys saying good morning, Lex and Raptor Freaks. Bonjour. This is why I don't listen to nobody but the Raptors freak. Let's go, Chev. Busted a flip flop. Busted flip flop. Boucher is the biggest hustler on the Raptors. That's why the show is called Hustle Play. Man, this man is energy personified. Look at the way the man runs from the very end of the bench all the way in. What about that meme, Chev? With Chris collapsing on the end of the bench. Cannot talk about this guy's not out there working. Come on, man. He's got that classic tired man meme at the end of the bench. How can you say that about Chris Boucher when you can see this? Oh, oh, oh. How can you say that man doesn't work when you've seen that man fall over at the end of the bench, giving us everything on the court? And how can you say this about the man who did this amazing, almost from the free throw line dunk this season? There's been so many cool things about Chris this year. Some of his dunking in the second half of the season was absolutely at another level that we hadn't seen from him yet. There's a certain confidence that Chris grew into this season and his role and what he's doing on this team that's fantastic. And I love seeing this. If there's nobody else on the team that knows their role, Chris Boucher does for sure. And I'm so glad about that. And that role is so badass. And I love that role. Offensive rebounding, energy, getting up and down the court, being a pest on defense. That is Dennis Rodman's school of basketball. And Chris Boucher carries that legacy, worming his way in there and getting those easy garbage rebounds, putting putbacks, getting in there and making everybody, and the other thing, I love you, Chris. If you watch this, I know what you're doing. You talk to the refs, you ask what each specific one looks for, and you are so good at getting fouls off positioning for rebounds. I've noticed this, that you are really good at baiting. It's kind of like an old Dennis Rodman trick where you're really good at baiting the other rebounder to foul you on going up for the rebound. Go, Chris. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a fantastic job. And I am proud of you. Let's just say that you made a big leap this year because you're more comfortable and confident in your role on the team, and you can operate within that role to a high degree because of that at this point. I'm so proud of Chris. All right, let's see. Space Cadet saying, agreed, Wayne. I like him, but recently he's been very critical of Fred about money, making a lot of assumptions. That's about the only thing I disagree with him on. It's going to be natural that people that cover the Raptors are going to be a little negative right now. And that's why I really got to strive to keep the light on and stay positive in this whole thing. We have had a dumpster fire kind of year, with all kinds of turmoil behind the scenes, all kinds of crazy shit. The players keep saying, we're just trying to stay together. Well, it sounds like there's a rocky ship, a voyage through the season, and that ship was tossing and turning, and they're just trying to stay together during all the tumultuousness. And I applaud the Raptors for staying together as a team. I know there may be a little bit of friction in certain ways with players, but for the most part, y'all really did stick together. And I think that the problems were with you guys and your coach. And hopefully all this can be fixed and we can get all the toxic out of the team and have things all cleaned up and healthy for next season. So that's what I'm looking for right now. But I don't doubt that many Raptors content makers, if they're still making content right now, are very negative. And that's why this is the one place we always shine the light and stay positive and stay true to the Raptors, because all we care about is them getting more Larry O'Briens and cheering them towards that. We can be patient. We don't have to be championship or bust fans like a lot of Raptors fans. That's kind of how Chev's acting right now. He's like, I'm not happy enough unless it's a championship, and I'll be disgruntled and be upset and make negative pieces after a season, even though it's not necessary. It really isn't. We are where we are right now. We have to accept it, and we got to improve on it. That's what Masai's saying. He's like, look, this isn't okay, but we have to do better. And that's what we look forward to. We don't look back. We don't just stay in the now. We progress and move forward, and we have a vision for the future of being better. And that's where we should all be focused and looking at, instead of like whining and crying about the season too much, or also just like poo-pooing everything, shitting all over our team in the present day either. So let's think about the future like Masai is, and the ability to get better and better in the next couple years and hopefully win our second championship. So that's where I'm at with that. Yeah. And anybody who's critical of Fred, I'm gonna come after you because I'm a big Fred stan. I'm like Fred propaganda, and I'm fighting that good fight for Freddie, because Freddie really does matter to me, and I respect him enough for all the people who disrespect him in Raptors Nation. I respect him in your void, because he is an important franchise legend of the Toronto Raptors, and people don't give him enough respect. It really makes me mad how they dump on Fred. So don't keep coming after Fred, and watch what Fred does this summer with his contract, and he'll surprise everyone. What if he doesn't opt out and he just takes the money that's on the books for next season? That'll make a lot of people's logical theories about him being so greedy for money go right out the window as soon as he just he declines his player option. Everybody will be like, whoa, he didn't take his player option. Oh my gosh. All right, let me keep going. I love seeing all the names in here. I'm gonna make sure I get all the comments. Let's see. Shane Waters is here. Good to see West Coast Shane Waters in Victoria, British Columbia. Chris was the only consistency off that bench. Sure, he had a handful of shitty games, but teams will play you harder if you're the only asset on the floor. I unsubscribe to Chev for BS content. Whoa, Shane. Listen, I mean, we have hits and misses. Sometimes people will like have bad content all of a sudden, and then people like leave or all of a sudden. I get that, but yeah, hey, it's your life. Do what you're gonna do. I agree. Like Chris, for the most part, was really good for the whole season. There were a couple of dud games here and there, and he would admit it where he didn't play very well. He did, in fact, in press conferences, he say, "I didn't play as good as I could have." I've heard Chris take accountability for him not having a good game, but a lot of times he was very consistent, a solid contributor. In fact, this year, Chris became the leader for Toronto Raptors franchise with the most double doubles off the bench in the history of the Toronto Raptors franchise. So that says something right there about consistency with Chris Boucher and how he plays off the bench. If he's the leader for a franchise in double doubles off the bench, and he did that this season, he got that mark. Okay, let's see. Fiercely saying, okay, I'm playing devil's advocate. All right, I like this, and we need this. We need this kind of stuff. Many times this season, Chris Boucher missed easy layups, and it annoyed me. But to be fair, he was not the only one. However, he also had wicked dunks and brought energy. This was a symptom of a lot of our guys, like bunnies, missed bunnies, just like Bismack used to do. Coloco missed a lot of bunnies near the basket. Precious missed a lot of bunnies. It seemed like OG sometimes couldn't make it near the basket. And then, of course, Scotty Barnes every once in a while would show up like he did with Tyrese Maxey at the skills competition at the All-Star weekend in his rookie year. That sometimes happens with our guys. It almost feels like there's saran wrap wrapped over the rim sometimes with these guys this past year. I don't know if it's just bad vibes, bad basketball kind of energy. I don't know what it is, but we were really bad at finishing at different times, whether it was like on transition when we had man advantage, whether it was like really easy layups, we ditched rim out. So it wasn't just Chris. There were a lot of guys that were missing close shots, and it was crazy. It was really, really crazy. I agree with you. It's annoying. But in Chris's behalf, I will say this, Fiercey. Who's more likely to go and get it the second time and put it back in after that miss? Chris. And that's something I'll say about that. All right, Monique is here. Good to see the super fan Monique Lawrence. Always good to see Mo, the greatest. Good morning, everyone. NBAChev went off indeed. Yeah, it's all good. I mean, a little bit of drama, more stuff for me to talk about this morning. MSJ saying, does any fan really expect a Raptor player to put in the work, something like 24 hours a day in the gym with a basketball? Nothing wrong with Chris's hobby, and it's a basketball podcast, still on point. Yeah, and it's informative to us. In fact, in some ways, he's a part of the Raptors PR department. He can do things in specific ways that can help with the culture, help with the fan base. He can also like tell us the truth about what happened this season. That's the biggest thing right now about this one coming out today is we'll get to hear it straight from Chris's mouth. Somebody who really does know what the fuck happened because he was in the middle of it and he really was behind all the closed doors and the private times all through the season. So he knows exactly why this season went so bad, and he may give us a couple more puzzle pieces so that we can talk about it here and understand more the failure of this season for the Raptors. So yeah, this is listen, this was a criticism of Scotty last year when he was on Twitch so many hours, and maybe that's what Masai was talking about in his end of season press conference, saying, well, yeah, we know about Scotty Summer last year. Well, yeah, because he was on Twitch and we all watched him. There's certain hours of the day you can't be all work and no play. Like here's Johnny from The Shining. You'll go crazy and you'll be putting an axe through the wall. So these guys need time to recharge and have a regular life. They're not robots. They can't be in the gym 24/7 all the time, every waking hour. Now, some of them try to do this. Seriously, there are maniacs in this league that will try and play and practice all the time, every waking hour, but it's still not healthy and it's not good. And in some ways, you can ruin your body earlier in your life if you're going too hard at it. So you do need times for vacation. You do need times for your body to recharge. You do need times to take care of yourself and just have relaxation. And you definitely need to do it during the summer at times. Sure, there's going to be times to work out. Maybe you work out 3 times a day still during the summer. And some people won't say that's enough. That's the kind of stuff Scotty was doing last summer. He'd work out in the morning, he'd work out in the middle of the day, and he'd work out at night. And people still, he'd get in like 2 hours of Call of Duty in the middle of it. People say, you need to be in the gym, Scotty. It's like he just came from the gym and he's going to leave the game and go to the gym right after he's done playing this video game. You're going to make this man do the gym 24/7? Come on. He needs to have a life. He's 20 years old. He's about to turn 21. Let the man grow up and grow into his life the way he wants to. So I'm with you on this. Now, there's different levels of dedication as far as like you can have the Siakam dedication of improving yourself, showing up every morning at 5 a.m., working your ass off every single day, no matter if it's the off season or the regular season. Yeah, you want that kind of work ethic. Some guys may not work as hard during the summer, but I think for the most part, this is part of like Bobby and Masai's criteria for bringing guys into the Raptors is they look for the guys that will put in the work on the offseason and want to improve all the time. We're not looking for guys that are super talented that coast on that and they don't actually work and they just kind of hang around and they don't improve. They were like, I'm already who I am. I'm this 20.10 rebound guy from college and I can come in and do this for y'all, but I won't see any growth because I don't work hard on developing myself outside of the game. Well, I don't think many of our guys on our roster are those kind of guys. I think that they don't draft them. I don't think that they acquire them if they're like this. So I don't worry about this as much. Yeah, Chris's hobby is great. It's information and it's something for Raptor fans to really look forward to and be happy to get the truth bombs from. So I'm all about this, MSJ. Great comment. Let's see. John Doe saying the bench was still terrible per 36 minutes. They were terrible. Chris is right, though. They should have played more so they could learn. Precious was so bad. I don't even think Precious was that bad. I mean, look, some of his mistakes are very glaring and you very much see them. But you know what? He's actually really, really consistent and very good considering how young he is and how much responsibility and ball handling we give him. He does a good job. In fact, I think he's further along than OG was in 2 years of his playing. Like, seriously, if you look at OG's stats from his sophomore year compared to Precious's, in some ways, Precious is further along than OG, even though he's gotten to start a bit, but OG got to start his whole rookie year. and got a whole bunch of time in his first year right away for the Raptors. And Precious, in some ways, has been held back, partly because he's a bench player. And in some ways, Precious is further along than Anunoby was after 2 years or 3 years now. I guess it's 3 years for Anunoby now, for Precious now. So in some ways, it's weird. I think I know why you think Precious was bad, but I don't agree with everybody that says Precious looks so awful out there. He makes one or two mistakes a game, but for the most part, he has a whole bunch of areas where he is playing very well and being consistent. So I don't think that's totally fair on Precious. But yeah, they should have found more ways to get the players to play better off the bench. I said that many times. Fun guy saying, Chev, F and dummy, he's fucking up our revenue of our team insight from podcasts and streams by complaining of his weak opinion of players doing broadcasts. Need more player pods, not less, dinghead. Well, I'm agreeing with this. I love to hear more podcasts from Raptors in general. I mean, seriously, if he had Scotty come on that show, that would be fantastic. We got a hustle play Chris Boucher with Scotty Barnes. Oh, I would love that episode. That would be fantastic. But I know it's not going to happen because Scotty doesn't do podcasts. Scotty doesn't like doing media stuff at all. He's not really a fan of the press conferences after the game. And in some ways, he doesn't like doing interviews. He's very shy in that way. So, yeah, I'm all about having more insight into the team by more player content put out. Shirkan saying, sure, we may not have given ample time to all the prospects, but at least pick a couple more guys to put in with the starters and see how it goes. Not just a minute or two, but a whole quarter or something. Yeah, give them a nice good stretch of like 5 to 6 minutes and, bring them in the first. I don't care. Just mix it up. Keep them guessing. In some ways, you were way too predictable with some of your rotations and what you were going to do, Nick. And that was part of the reason why you were stagnating as the coach of the Raptors, is you were kind of in patterns where you would not break free of them enough to make it kind of variable and different so that other teams knew, like they really knew what to expect from you at this point. They really, really did. They scouted our defense from last year and they played it way better this year. Offenses were made to beat our crazy, like hurry, catch up defense that we've been doing the last 2 years. And they were way more effective at beating that defense. That defense didn't have the same seal or the same power that it did the year before. And this year, they went to the drawing board, the coaches, and they said, well, this is how we beat the Raptors catch up defense that hurries after things. This is how we do it. And boom, they figured it out. And a lot of people did it this year to us. And that was a big thing. It's like he's not ahead of the curve. He's not ahead of the innovation coming to challenge what you've come up with. Well, you got to continually change, Nick, and you got to continually be ahead of it. And you weren't. It caught up to you this year. And that's part of the reason why our defense wasn't as good this year, because people knew how to pick it apart better. MSJ saying, since Chris has spoken, more confirmation of what we had been thinking. So I think even more now that the Nick Nurse exit will bring a renewed team next year. 8 more wins. The team didn't like Nick Nurse. So simple. At some point, there's something that rubbed them wrong. I mean, the lack of support for him is evident in the last few episodes at Open Gym that have been released. You can see that they're not enthusiastic. They're not coming in for the let's go Raptors, any of that kind of stuff. And it sucks. So hopefully somebody will come in and reinvigorate the enthusiasm and the excitement and the energy and get these guys playing at a high level together, because it's a new, fresh approach from a new head coach. And I'm all about that. I think the promise of this is very good. And who knows, like seriously, we may be really shocked how much better our team is without Nick Nurse holding it back. In some ways, he's like a governor on an engine. That we couldn't get our car to go faster than 50 clicks an hour. And we need to go 100 clicks an hour. And maybe we take that governor off the engine and the car will run at 100 clicks an hour now that we don't have Nick governing us. So let's see. Fiercely saying, I saw Clippers fans ask, what is the point of load managing all year when you don't even play in the playoffs? Sadly, you can't predict injuries, but I'm glad we got Kawhi healthy-ish for us. Yeah, in some ways, that's another reason why our championship year is so special, because it's one of the last postseasons where Kawhi Leonard actually stayed healthy through it. And credit to Dr. Alex McKechnie. If Kawhi Leonard could get at Dr. Alex to come and be on the staff of the Clippers, he would do it in a heartbeat. In fact, he's the one guy he wanted from us the most. Forget about Norman and Serge. He wanted Dr. Alex to follow him to the Clippers and help load manage him and keep his body healthy. And that may be part of the reason why we had success with this. This is so true. We see in the years since Kawhi has not been able to play consistently in the playoffs because he's hurt. And, really does kind of make us realize, wow, we were lucky. We got Kawhi in the healthy postseason. David's here. Good to see David Saborin. We missed you yesterday, David. Oh, what did this guy say? Always miss the good stuff. Boucher is my favorite player on the team. That's right. You had that really nice, smart looking Chris Boucher jersey when we were at the Indiana game a couple months ago. A really nice jersey. I love when people have like lesser players on the team than the superstars. David Saborin having a Chris Boucher jersey on says a lot about him, and I respect that so much, David. I really do. No idea why he's so underrated or why everyone wants to package him in a trade. Yeah, yes, and yes. Maybe these other fans want Chris on their team. Chris doesn't want to go anywhere. He lives in Canada. He's Canadian. He lives in Toronto. He's lazy. He doesn't want to go move his life somewhere else. He's not lazy and working towards like basketball and doing things on the court. He's lazy in as far as his regular life. He doesn't want to pack up his shit and move to the States and play for a U.S. American team. So I don't think we're trading him. We got good value on him. He's a good role player. He's a good part of our culture. And he loves being in Canada and he loves being in Toronto. So yeah, people putting him in trades or trade bait and stuff like that, get over yourself. That's a Canadian man. He plays for the Canadian team in this league. He's a true Canadian. That's right. And he don't want to go nowhere. Monique's saying all business and all seriousness, Chris. Wow, I said it once. Now say it all. We love you even more after that episode. That's right, Chris. Thank you for dropping the truth to us. The fans want to know answers to their questions about this past season. And Chris Boucher is going to fill in some more of the blanks today with that Hustle Play podcast. Dropping today. Be on the lookout for it. When we see it, we'll be talking about it tomorrow for sure, reacting to what he says, because I'm sure there's much more juicy stuff other than just his criticism of Nick Nurse not playing the bench. Now, he does not specifically say Nick Nurse's name. He does not call him out. He just says that he feels like the bench should have played more this year. That is calling Nick Nurse out, but not by name. He does not say his name when he says that. Wayne's saying, I'm liking the Boston Celtics. Yes, blasphemy. I noticed both Tatum and Jaylen Brown have the same moves in the paint. Is that coincidental or that's trained practice drills? Hawks still going home. Listen, I can respect the Celtics and what they've built on their team. They were very well run. I wish that the Raptors were more like the Celtics in certain ways with their systems and the way that they run their defense and their offense. It's just more sound. It makes more sense. They get the most out of their personnel. They really have defined roles. They play so good together because of that. This is all things that we lacked on our team. And that's why in some ways, yeah, I really do respect the Celtics, because in some ways they got all the things that we want going in Toronto there right now. And I'm all about it. It is blasphemy in a way, but you know what? Listen, we can respect when teams are doing well. And I'll give them kudos. They have a great system, a great roster, and they really do manage it well. In fact, that is showing what we should be more like. The Celtics. We should be way more like the Celtics. Look at how they have role players off the bench that they can utilize. Peyton Pritchard is not a regular everyday role player on their team, but he gets his chances to come into games from time to time, and he can be a huge X factor. They use Pritchard so much better than we use Flynn, and that's the kind of stuff we could learn from other teams, is how to be better with this. Now, the new coach may be way better at all this kind of stuff than Nick, but this is what I'm saying. Nick needed to be more like the Celtics in some ways, and he just wasn't. I think you're right. I think the Celtics will still beat the Hawks. It'd be really crazy if the Hawks do put them out in the first round. I mean, I wouldn't be upset about it, but it'd be really crazy. David's saying there aren't many bench players making $12 million a year who have the production and impact on a team as Boucher. Yeah, Chris is awesome. Quit dumping on Chris. Chris is the best. Chef, make your apology video. Isaac saying, crap, I accidentally deleted our Rookie of the Year Shere Khan's post. I'm sorry. I love your takes. Yeah, I was wondering about that, Isaac. You just made a misclick. Don't worry. I uncovered them and I read them still. You go, Shere Khan. No disrespect from Isaac Campbell with his illegal wrench move right there. Bad wrench throw, dodgeball. You can dodge a ball. You can dodge a wrench. You can dodge a ball. John Doe is saying, well, Nurse played the bench when he had some vets ready to play. Ibaka and Powell went for 100 off the bench. but he did not trust these inexperienced guys who had not developed. Yeah, that's crazy that we got our bench record with Nick Nurse as our coach. That doesn't even make sense to me in some ways. Like, how the fuck did we break our record for having 100 points off our bench while Nick Nurse was a coach in this era of Nick Nurse? That's weird. That's very weird. And then you think about the Dallas game that one year where we were down by like 30 in the second half and we came back and it was the bench with Kyle Lowry that won that Dallas Mavericks game around Christmas that one year. It was like Chris Boucher, Rondé Hollis Jefferson, Terrence Davis, Kyle Lowry, and like somebody crazy like Matt Thomas or something. It's like it was crazy. It was crazy. And these were really good usages of the bench at those times with Nick. So in some ways, it's like, wait, you've shown times where the bench has done good things, but I still don't get this whole idea that our bench is just crap and that's why he did things this way. Bullshit. You can get something out of everybody in this league. It's just you're not very good at doing it. We see Yuta, we see Svi, we see Alex Len, and we see them doing more productive things for the teams they're on now. Yeah, you could figure out a way to get them more productive. Smooth saying, I saw Chev's video. Passionate dude. I disagree with him. What do you think of Kenny Atkinson? He forged Brooklyn's identity pre KD. Could be a really good fit. And David's saying Atkinson. That's Peter's pick. So Peter Saborin likes Kenny Atkinson. It's an interesting one. I mean, in some ways, his record's not bad. He's a good development coach. He has respect around the league. That's pretty good. So he should have respect with the refs for the most part. He comes from, the Golden State Warriors currently and their system and their things with Steve Kerr. He could have taken the Charlotte Hornets job last year, but he didn't. Instead, he stayed with the Warriors. I don't know. I mean, in some ways, is he a good fit? Like he wants to be here. That's the other thing we got to talk about. Like with the Ime Udoka thing, it's come out. Like there's an article. Let me read you guys an article about Ime Udoka hiring with the Rockets. Adrian Warnowski saying that basically this is what they said about this. Udoka and Stone moved quickly towards a partnership upon an initial meeting recently. Sources said Udoka decided against pursuing the Toronto Raptors job and other potential openings in his hiring cycle, sources said. So this is the thing. Udoka, it sounds like he didn't want to come to Toronto from this article that Woj put out this morning. And that's part of the reason why he chose Houston. Is that he had already thought about it and Toronto wasn't the right fit for him. Now I'm wondering that's part of the worry with Kenny Atkinson. In some ways, Jerry Stackhouse, Jama Mahalea, Earl Watson, Adrian Griffin, these guys are more attractive because we know that they like being in Toronto. They've been here before and they've coached here and they've been a part of our culture. Now, Kenny Atkinson, we don't know if he'll be like loyal to the Raptors franchise. That's part of the problem is like, the coach, we want them bought in like Nick Nurse was before and very much like not some sort of agent of chaos like he was this year. And that's part of the thing. It's like we want Kenny Atkinson to be very much a Toronto Raptors company man when he comes here. Now, would that happen? Is his heart into it? Would he come here and really buy into being the Raptors head coach? That's what I worry about in some cases with people that are outside of our organization, like Sam Cassell. He's another one. I would be worried about his allegiance and feeling of duty to our team, even though it's like they're getting paid and they're doing this. But yeah, Vince Carter didn't have an allegiance or duty to us, and he was our franchise player. That's what I'm saying. You got to know if they're a real one and they're going to stick through. Because even in some ways, Nick Nurse, we thought he was a real one, and he was a real one for most of 10 years. But recently, he wasn't a real one in the last year. This year, he has not been a real one for us. And that's part of the problem is you want your coach as much as just like your players to be bought in and be a real one with allegiance and loyalty to your team. And in some ways, I don't know how much loyalty we build up with Kenny Atkinson. I mean, I guess if we give him the head coach job and things go well and he feels really happy that he got a chance to be a head coach again, sure, it could be built, but there's no certainty of that it could go a lot of different ways. Maybe he doesn't get along with some of the players and they don't win a lot and it becomes a dumpster fire, even worse. That's why I worry about somebody like a candidate like Kenny Atkinson, because I want the person to be dedicated to our franchise, first of all, and be for real. And then, we got to know that they're going to get along with everybody and they're going to be a fit. And I think he might be, and he might work, but there's still question marks about that. That's what I'm saying. Still question marks about that. Great question, Smooth, and thanks for bringing up Kenny Atkinson today. Blackhawk saying genesis of Chev's argument is Chris shouldn't speak on the subject. Chris needs to keep his head down on this one. Yeah, I don't think that that's true, though. I don't think that's true. Listen, I get it. All right. Now, the whole argument could be this: locker room stuff stays in the locker room. And I can get that. Now, if his teammates have some problem with something he says on Hustle Play podcast, I'm sure they'll come talk to him. Freddie and Pascal and Scotty and them may be like, hey, Chris, don't talk about this and this about our team on there. Or maybe the management of the Raptors tells him what he can and cannot talk about. I think free speech is important. And in some ways, look, the season's over. We're in off season. And in some ways, we have questions about why this season went shitty. We pay money to go to games. It was tickets. We do all kinds of stuff to support them. We want to know why the fuck things went wrong. So if Chris is going to give us the answers, I'm all about it. So I'm not with Chev on this. If we want to hear the truth and he's willing to tell us the truth, let's hear it. And nobody should be telling people what they shouldn't be able to talk about. It's free speech. If Chev wants to have the free speech on his channel, he's better for damn sure allow Chris to have his free speech also on his channel. His truth, Chev's truth, my truth, Chris's truth, it's all important and it all needs to be out there. Monique's saying Scotty is another Subway ad. Yeah, Scotty's doing Subway ads still. He's got a newer one that's different than the other ones. Chris is in Subway ads also now. But yeah, Scotty, new Subway ad campaign out there. Cowboys saying Chris devises a dunk. Write it down, Lex. Have you called Nurse yet? Tell him I said good luck. Raptor Freak family, have a great day. Got to go. Ta-da. Enjoy the sunshine. Let's go Raptors. No, I'm not going to call Nick anymore. He's not a part of our organization anymore. So I will not be calling Nick Nurse anymore on the fake phone. Well, there'll be calls to somebody new soon. We'll see. But yeah, we'll do the phone tricks next season again when there's more really at that point. But no, I'm not going to call Nick at this point. I want to leave him respectfully alone and allow him to go through the changes that's going through in his life with all due respect. Seriously. Cool Cat saying, yeah, I love Scotty's new video on Subway. That's awesome. I saw a little bit of it, but I didn't really pay attention to it. So I'll have to watch it again. Seymour saying, top of the day, Raptor Freaks. Top of the day to you, Sheriff Seymour Pape, our sheriff and moderator. Appreciate you, sir. Wayne saying coaching is key. Too many team drills are to penetrate the paint, be at the basket, and then throw it out for a hopeful three. Boston and the Warriors, yes, but not the rest. Phoenix Suns and Nuggets don't do that. Yeah, we just need to mix it up. We just needed more different schemes. We needed to try better stuff at certain points and have better results. Let's see. Shirkan saying it, Isaac Campbell, when the comment was deleted, it put me in a timeout and took me 3 times to get back in. Never had that happen to me before. We don't like that, Shirkan. You know what? We're wrenching you up. That's what happens. And Isaac feels bad about it, I'm sure. So you're getting wrenched, bro. Rookie of the year, Shirkan is getting the wrench. Isaac saying, sure, we may not have given ample time to all the prospects, but at least pick a couple more guys to put in with the starters and see how it goes. Not just a minute or two, but a whole quarter or something. There's definitely time that Jeff Doughton Jr. could have been out there consistently. That's the thing. People say our bench sucks, but every time I saw Jeffrey Doughton Jr. on the court this year, he was consistently good and not making mistakes. He was very good on defense. He made most of his shots. He found the right passes. He kept up with everything. He didn't look like a sore thumb that stuck out. He very much looked like he could meld with the starters and be a part of an extended rotation for us. He just didn't put him out there. That's what I'm saying. Jeffrey Doughton Jr. may be the best example of Nick Nurse's mismanagement this season. That this dude showed all signs of being consistent. I don't believe that garbage that he was a poor player, that he couldn't play out there, because at the end of the season, he fit with the starters in crucial minutes against big-time opponents. And he could have been doing that the whole season. So that's Nick's mismanagement, misjudging of Jeff Doughton and not using him more and giving him more time instead of Fred or somebody else that's getting overplayed and is in the leaders of minutes in the league. Jeffrey could have eaten up some of those minutes for sure. And he's a perfect example of this. Isaac feels bad about what he did to Shere Khan. Shere Khan's got a wrench now, though. David's saying Isaac is a violent mod, Shere Khan. Don't take it personally. It's the benevolent Isaac Campbell. Come on, David. You're the violent mod, David. Shere Khan saying no problems. That deep 3 from Trey was absolutely fantastic. First round is not kind to the top 2 teams. Denver looking like the real number 1 team. even if Boston, Milwaukee closed it out in 6 to 7 games. It took too much out of them. That's the truth, too. It's crazy. Philadelphia finished their series on Saturday, and they're going to have 10 days off between the second round and finishing and sweeping the Brooklyn Nets. That is crazy. That is all the time in the world for Joel to heal up and be 100% and be ready for game one. And that is a huge luxury, but also a detriment because sometimes you want to be in the groove of playing. 10 days is a long time off between basketball games. And in some ways, Doc may be worried about the Sixers being a little lackadaisical in the first game of the second round next week on Monday. So in some ways, it's a very good benefit for sure. But it can be a little bit like that's too much time off between games. So we'll have to see how that works out. But yeah, this has been a real luxury for the Sixers. And the more that Milwaukee and Boston draw out their first round, not good for them. Seriously. More chances for possible injuries, more chances for bad things to happen on their team. That's why you want to take care of business. Like Doc Rivers said in a really dumb way, don't play with your meat. He meant don't play with your food. He was doing the saying that I've said many times this season, Raptors, don't play with your food. Just take care of it. Beat them. And he said, don't play with your meat, Doc Rivers. And his players came up to him and said, Coach, it's don't play with your food. And you sound like you're talking about masturbation is what it sounded like. Doc Rivers, you're hilarious. All right, Van Hoot saying two things can be true. Nurse could have played them more, and the bench can be objectively not good this year overall. Yeah, all right, Van Hoot, I can get along with that basketball rewind for sure. I mean, that's true. I mean, listen, our bench is, and like if you compare it to the rest of the league, yeah, we do not have a good bench for sure. If you're going to use metrics compared to other teams, but how much is it chicken or the egg as far as like would we have had a better bench if he had played them more? I mean, I think that they're very interconnected and they're very related. So in some ways, you can't. I get what you're saying that they can both be true, but what if the one is predicated on the other one happening first for it to be allowed to have a good bench? You have to actually play them. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I a lot of respect to you, Basketball Rewind, Van Hoot. All the best. Check out his channel, Basketball Rewinds. Good shit, really is. Fiercely saying, so maybe Nick Nurse strictly wanted to win in order to up his clutch value for future negotiations. No care in the world for our young players and helping them develop and strive. That is what it seems like, Fiercey. Like seriously, I think that honestly, like I said in the last couple of days, I think Nick sabotaged his place on the Raptors this season very intentionally because he wants a bigger payday. That he could have stuck around with us, renegotiated this summer with Masai to like go past his lame duck year of next year for $8 million and maybe re-upped it and maybe got a little bit, but maybe Clutch is like, nah, dude, don't be up in Toronto. Go somewhere else and get paid even more by like the Lakers. And I really do think it was all calculated and like it wasn't in his plan. Like for the last 10 years, Nick was very much ready to be the Raptors Popovich. But I think Clutch got to him with the ideas of like what's possible with money, what's possible with another prestige head coaching job, like coaching the Lakers. And they're really just trying to steer him towards this. That it's not even him. Like if they had not been involved with him and his representation, I bet you a lot of this shit wouldn't have happened because he would have had the integrity. I think in some ways he very much did sabotage the season. So to be upset, it wouldn't be a good season. So he could leave. So he could leave and get more money and go to a different job. I really do blame this as the main reason why we had a bad year this year. That Nick was selfish himself and that he choked the team out in certain ways with the bench and decision making and just dumb shit that he caused dissension, caused it to be a dumpster fire. And they won half their games anyways, despite all that. And it was just bad enough. And he had to put the cherry on top at the end of the season by fucking up with the press conference. That was very intentional and blatant. He said he didn't regret it. Masai said it was a mistake. And that really was the point of no return. Once he did that, it's like really like I'm going to make sure this door gets kicked open and I walk right out of here by doing that press conference in Philly. And then like the way that they played to be a failure in the play-in against Chicago, that just added more to the fuel that like, yeah, we need to make a change with the Raptors. And Nick's like, hey. And Masai's like, all right, you're fired. It could have been that simple as that. He was lining himself up. His goal this year wasn't to win another Larry O'Brien with the Raptors. His goal was to get fired and get out of his contract with the Raptors so he could go somewhere else. That is the most selfish, ugly, fucked up shit that a coach could do. And in some ways, I'm really pissed at him. This went down this way, and it looks like this from the outside. So really crazy. Monique saying TSN reporting Raptors coaching odds is a bit silly. Only Griffin on the list. I had to share it with the group. Yeah, I saw that list that TSN's putting out there. Once again, they show that they're so out of touch. In some ways, this Raptor Freak channel is way more informed and on top of things about the Raptors than the sports network, TSN. That list didn't make any sense to me. What are these odds? And where are you getting these odds? And where are all the rest of the names that should be on this list? Yeah, I saw that TSN post, Monique, and I laughed at it. I was like, this is bullshit. Is TSN have an agenda to want us to get this certain coach? And that's why they're putting out propaganda that shows this and this. Yeah, it wasn't the same names and the same odds that we've all been predicting here. So it was a little weird, Smooth saying the bench problem has to do with the coaching staff, not only Nick Nurse. Most of the staff were incompetent, respectfully speaking. So he's not even blaming Nick. He's going after all the rest of them too. Nate Bjorngren, Trevor Gleason, Errol Watson, Rico Hines, John Carbascio, John Goodwillie. Yeah, it's your fault, Goodwillie. You know what? I can't disagree with this. They're an extension. They should be shouldn't there be a department? Wasn't Rico running the development department and saying, Nick, Delano's showing some real upticks in his development with this and his jump shot. Maybe you should give him more grind and give him a little burn in the next game because he's really shown improvement just recently. And he's really been on fire. What is there reporting from down low with the other coaches telling him this is happening with these guys and maybe you should play them? I don't know. Maybe that there was a communication problem in that way. Some people have speculated that Nick was not communicating with his coaches at the end of the season, even that he wasn't even communicating with his players. He wasn't communicating with his coaches even. And that's how fucked up things were. G saying, I think it was a challenge these past few years, balancing the bench play and trying to win. There's a lot of pressure for the Raptors to win. Teams like the Pistons don't have that pressure. Yes, yeah, I could get behind this. I think that's very true, that we have a different kind of pressure in some ways. That the Raptors nation is so online. Detroit doesn't have a fan nation that's very active and going crazy and putting pressure from the fan nation on social media like the Raptors nation is. So that's definitely true about that. I think that's true. That the balance between developing and winning has been at the crux of a lot of our wishy-washy mid kind of shit. Is either we go in the development, people say, get rid of the assets and suck so that you can get a lot of good players through the draft. And in some ways, the best way to go. That's the tank mentality. But in some ways, I like the idea of having good winning qualities and habits in development still, that you can still find ways to win in development. And we did that last season. We won in development, and there is a way to do that. And we just weren't successful at winning with the development this year. So we went heavy on trying to win, and we suffered at the development, and we still didn't win. And that's part of the reason why this is a big fail. Is it's we went heavy to win, but we still didn't win, and we didn't develop also at the same time. Wayne saying you've been very fair to Chev, Lex, refusing to critique him when we said he was bugging on Fred in particular. Worst was when he was advocating we trade Fred for Dinwiddie of the Nets. That's nuts. I didn't know he said that. I'm not up to date on every single thing he's saying specifically. I just think that he's a powerful, good person in our Raptors nation. And I'm very proud of him and what he usually says. Now, I know that sometimes he's not going to say everything that I agree with. And that's just the way everybody is. I'm sure, you and I have not agreed on everything in recent weeks, Wayne. But that's just how it is. At least we respectfully, disagree at times. But most stuff we do agree on, Wayne and I. But yeah, I appreciate that you're saying that I've been fair to him. I don't know exactly what he's saying, and I don't want to sully him or put him down. I very much have a lot of respect for NBAChev. It's just that I think it's hypocritical of him to call out Chris for doing a podcast when you kind of do the same thing. And that's the only thing that's crazy. I would never do Spencer Dinwiddie for Fred. I think that it's hilarious, the fight between Spencer Dinwiddie and Kyle Kuzma on Twitter recently. Once again, more beefs on Twitter. I'm with Kuzma on this one. I know Spencer's being a little smug and being a little asshole, but in some ways, Kuzma is exactly right. on everything what he's saying back at Spencer. And I'm not a big fan of Spencer Dinwiddie. I think he's a good player, but he's not as good as he thinks he is. And I don't really want him on the Raptors. I mean, he would be good in some ways, but he definitely have to take a back seat. And he couldn't be in this mentality like he was telling Kuzma on Twitter that he's like the second option. No, dude, you're like a fourth option. And you shouldn't be like a second option on a team. That team's not very good if you're the second option. Let's just put it that way. Line Hunter's saying that would have been a horrible trade. Did he really advocate for that? That would have been an absolute horrible trade. Very, very bad trade. Some people just lost sight of who Fred is and exactly how important he is because he has shortcomings and people see those and they get mad at those, but they don't realize every single important, crazy, awesome thing he does for our team also. And they conveniently forget about that and they're ready to toss him out when they don't realize how essential he is. He really is. Let's see. Fiercely saying, my goodness, so many podcasts by current and former players. How can people make up for the time? CJ Miles, Chris Boucher, Danny Green, Draymond Green. There's a lot of content being made by the NBA players themselves these days. And I'm all for it. I love it. I love the bridge and the communication and the understanding and the truth telling. I'm lay it on us, Chris, today. Bring in that new Hustle Play podcast with you and Mike Roach. I saw that Mike Roach reposted your post on Instagram, Monique Lawrence. I saw that Mike Roach posted you on there. Very cool. Let's see. Monique saying Masai wasn't joking about Otto Porter in his press conference. 8 games played. Yeah, he deserves to be back. Well, I'd like to see us get a return on having him on contract with us. A lot of jokes about Otto just getting paid to sit and stealing money from us on Twitter right now. I would really like to see him come back and contribute. Or if we do put him in a deal this summer, let's get something good for him at least in a trade. Duke saying Chev recently posted an apology to Chris on his YouTube channel. Good stuff. I'm glad that he did that. In some ways, Chris, hey, I'm glad you have the guts to get on there in the middle of everybody on social media and Twitter and come after him. In some ways, you may have saw that and be like, I don't even want to get involved in this. No, Chris came right at him and said, hey, yo, I'm here and I can see what you said. And that's cool. Wayne saying Chev's on point with basically everything else, though. I listened to him consistently, just like you, Lex. Chev was saying Nick Nurse to go long time ago before his Philly comments, so he's on point most times. Yeah, he's very knowledgeable and learned. Honestly, I don't deny that Chev knows the game. And like me, I respect that he's an old head and that he really appreciates the 80s and 90s style of basketball. And in some ways, that's where he comes from with his school of thought. And we are very much birds of a feather. There's a lot of overlap with the way we see the game and the way we think about things. So that's part of the reason why I don't watch him is because I don't want to rip him off. I want to genuinely come from the conclusions that I come from on my own. And if we sound the same on our channels, well, then that probably is a good sign that there's something true to it if we're both coming to the same conclusions. But yeah, I appreciate him from afar at this point. I did watch him regularly a few years ago before I started this channel. And he's a big inspiration for why I started this channel, actually. And but I don't watch him anymore just because. But I'm glad you guys come in and tell me kind of things that he's been saying and stuff like that. Nick Nurse has been a weird one. I defended him a lot this year. But then once he did that press conference, I turned on him. I was like, yeah, this is already showing, yeah, David Thorpe may have been right last fall. And I was really mad at David Thorpe for making that rumor about Nick being bad for the team and what he said, but he may have been crying out to help Masai, and he was right. You know what? Keep watching, Chev. Keep watching me. We both appreciate your patronage, Wayne. I'm so happy to have you here, man. You've been another one like Shere Khan. That's just been a very good, nice new voice in here that's really been great since you guys have shown up. Shere Khan saying that's the other things. Nick never drew out plays for bottom bench guys, doing more of the same of what Miami did for Precious. That could have been used in a better way. Small ball center versus point forward. Yeah, I didn't like him playing small ball center. I wanted him to play power forward because he was a real detriment on defense at center. He wasn't guarding our paint at all. Thaddeus, he just couldn't. He wasn't quick enough and big enough, and guys would absolutely destroy him down low when he was playing the 5. And that's why there's a big movement in Raptors Nation telling Nick, stop playing Thad at the center at a certain point. Well, he didn't just do that. He just stopped playing him. And that's another crazy thing. Thumbs up from Abandoned. Smooth saying Kawhi injured again, torn meniscus. Wow. That just sucks. I feel bad for him in some ways. I really do. In some ways, there's a lot of promise. If you think about with Kawhi Leonard had been healthy most of his career, like if he had really just been a healthy dude, kind of like LeBron, he may have had way more championships already. He may be like way higher in the all-time great list as far as considered. He may be more in the conversation with Michael and Kobe and LeBron. And the injuries in some ways, Kawhi, the way you've done things with load management, stuff like that, yeah, you might have robbed yourself of some of the greatest accolades you could have had in the on long term. As far as being considered one of the greatest of all time, the promise was there, the ability was there, but you just weren't there. And that's just the sad thing. Abandoned saying, show this channel some support. Hit the like button, thumbs up. It goes a long way. Thank you, Abandoned. I appreciate that. Monique saying, I wonder how the coaching interviews are going right now. Waiting patiently, but anxious. Yeah, we want to know what's going to happen with this. The sooner we know who the coach is, the better. For sure, Monique. I'm definitely with you on that. Fiercely saying, our shooter is Otto. Hope he stays healthy. Wheezy as well. Fire. Yeah, hopefully these guys can be used better by the next coach and we get more three-point shooting consistent. Otto Porter healthy, Joe Wieskamp actually trusted and utilized in a way for him to succeed. Boom, there you go. Isaac Campbell saying Boucher is our only bench piece that brings it. We need more of him, perhaps, but we also need more like him. We were critical of Nick Nurse about the bench, right? That's why you started calling him. That's exactly right. I would call him after games after I was like, what the fuck are you doing, Nick? And it makes me wonder more and more how much of that was on purpose. How much of that, just like a player may shave points in a college cheating scandal of gambling. How much was shaving done by the coach with wins this season to make sure we were mid enough that he can make an exit at the end of the season? We can have a motive. We can see motives here. We can see understandings of why maybe this happened with more of the pieces filled into the puzzle. Leslie saying, hey guys, check out Jerry Stackhouse on All That Smoke. Very good interview. All right. I will check that out this afternoon for sure. Leslie, thanks for the heads up. Is this a very recent interview, like one from this week? I'd love to hear what he's sounding like, if he's giving any tells about, possibly coming up here and getting interviewed. That'd be fantastic. Jerry Stackhouse is very much my number one pick right now. David's saying, let's go Stackhouse. I'm all about that too. David's a big fan of Stackhouse being our next coach too. He's who I wanted when Casey got fired. I was like, we're going to get Jerry Stackhouse to be our next coach. But then they put Nick Nurse in. It was crazy. All right, y'all. No more comments for right now, just because we're coming up on 2 hours. And I do want to finish up within 3 hours. And I see that there's still quite a bit on here. Randolph saying, Lex, I've always wondered why our young players, when they are let go, can go and perform so good on other teams. They give them a chance to play. That's as a result of what everyone is saying. Well, a really good example of this is O'Shea Brissett. Let's look at him for a second. When he was on Toronto, we had to make a tough training camp decision, and it was between him and Yuta Watanabe. We couldn't keep both of them. This is the thing. It's not, I've said this recently, it's not like Pokemon where you got to catch them all and you keep them all together. You have to make tough decisions at that moment for what you want and what you need on your team. And you may let go of players that are sure bets that are going to be very good on other teams, and that you can't do anything about that. Now, O'Shea going to the Pacers was a really good situation for him where they needed more big men. And so he got a lot of opportunities to play. His opportunities here in Toronto weren't as good. A lot of it is fit. Sometimes it has to do with the coach and whether they see like promise in them and they want to really lean on them and use them. Nick showed that with Svi Mihalik in this beginning of that year with us. And he played him a lot. And he did get some constructive bench time out of Svi in the first half of that season last year. But over the course of the season, he lost his confidence and he didn't play as well. And he was no good. Now, his confidence isn't going to go away forever. So when he gets to Charlotte, not even when he's in New York, not even when he's in the other stop, he comes to Charlotte and he actually gets to play good time and garbage time with LaMelo out. Sometimes it has to do with opportunity, and it has to do with the settings of the situation. The Raptors have been a high quality team for a long time. It's very competitive and hard to bust into our rotation. Whereas way easier for O'Shea Brissett to get into the rotation of the Pacers at that time. And along with Yuta in Brooklyn this year, Svi in Charlotte at the end of this year. So a lot of it isn't necessarily on the coach. It's the opportunity within the parameters and the settings of that a specific team and what they need and what they're trying to do on the court. So there's no fine line way of saying, "Oh, Nick's a failure because he didn't get Yuta to shoot so well while he was here, like the Nets did." Well, maybe Yuta got to a new level in his development as a player as he grew and got older, and he just hit the next level, and it just happened to not be here. And it has nothing to do with that. I hate this argument, and it gets so crazy, overdone these days because we see former Raptors have success after they leave us. We can't keep everyone. And Masai's keeping the fit that he wants. And honestly, I don't want Yuta, Svi, and O'Shea Brissett on this team right now. Their time with us was when it was, and we move on and we move forward. And that's the way everybody should be. There's a lot of woulda, coulda, shoulda when you start thinking, oh, if we had Norman now, when he's going 40 against the Suns in the playoffs, why don't we have Norman? That shit happened 2.5 years ago. How the fuck are you going to go get in a time machine, Peabody and Sherman? Well, Sherman, let's go back to 2019 and change this and this with this trade. Okay, Mr. Peabody. No, we ain't got no time machine like Sherman and Mr. Peabody. So there's no woulda, coulda, shoulda here. Things just happen the way they were, and they just are they as they are. David's saying, I heard yesterday Fred opted out already, although it's from the media, so who knows? Fred opted out? I haven't heard that yet. Let me see. Fred VanVleet, player option. Yeah, I don't see that yet. I don't see that. He said he's going to do it within the time of when it's going to happen. That's no official. That's probably just speculation from the media still, David. Country Kong saying, I like Stackhouse, and I think he'd be a great coach since he coached the bench mob to the 905 championship. Does anyone know if he's interested in leaving Vanderbilt? I also like Atkinson and Nash. I don't know. I mean, it's a step up. Vanderbilt is prestigious, and he's been there for a certain time. I don't know. It could be very true. Like, this is another thing I thought about. There's no guarantee that Jerry Stackhouse liked being in Canada. It may be that he's not interested in being our coach. Once again, we just think that, oh, people are just going to want to come take the job if the job's available. It could very well be that he does have happy times in Vanderbilt and doesn't want to go anywhere. So I don't know. I'm going to watch this interview with all that smoke that Leslie brought up earlier, and maybe that'll tell us a little bit of where he's at. I haven't heard totally officially that Jerry Stackhouse has been interviewed for our job, but I'm hoping that he is and that he is a top candidate. We'll have to see. Kawhi has a torn meniscus. Yeah, that's awful. Nash, I don't think he's in the running. I don't think Nash is ever going to be a coach again. I think he learned his lesson. Mugarbe's here. Good to see Mugarbe Lennon. Chev did clarify what he said about Chris. He's saying he was talking about the basketball and doing podcasting this season. Yeah, I still don't think that's a problem. I mean, fuck, Draymond is podcasting at halftime during games. Like, he's in the middle of a game and he's going into the dressing room and podcasting in between the first and the second quarter half. That's crazy to me. So whatever Chris is doing can't be worse than what Draymond Green is doing. So yeah, and honestly, he came out with 4 or 5 episodes this whole entire year. Half those episodes were like talking to people like Alvin Williams or Thaddeus Young, and they were just kind of like getting to know people more and not necessarily on everything. I mean, they talked about Coloco and the situation in Miami with Caleb Martin. And that was very illuminating. And I didn't feel like there was anything wrong with them going back and forth on that. In fact, we found out that Chris was telling him not to let them ride his back. Don't let that guy ride your back in the game. And that's part of why Coloco swung out and he hit Caleb and then that whole fight. We got more blow by blow about that whole situation with Coloco because of the Hustle Play podcast. So what? You want to take away like learning and information and sharing the knowledge and truth by telling him he can't do his podcast? No, I ain't about that. I ain't about that at all. Cowboy saying everyone hit the like button. No hate on Chev. Big up to you, Lex and the Raptor Freaks. That's right. We're all in the same family. We're birds of a feather. We're all good. Duke saying, Lex, thoughts on the Raps' next coach? I've heard names like Earl Watson and Jerry Stackhouse. How about Nate Bjorngren? I thought he did a good job in Indy, even though he got fired. Thanks, Duke Rocks. Thanks for being here. Duke Rocks, our fantasy basketball champion for this past season, the Raptor Freak Yahoo Fantasy Basketball Champion, Mr. Duke Rocks. Good to see you back in the chat. I like Earl and Jerry. for sure. Those are two of my top names, my top three names that I totally would love to see coach our team. I'm not big on Bjorgren. In some ways, we learned what Nate Bjorgren is like as a head coach from going to Indiana, and it's not good. And in some ways, we don't need him to be our head coach. In some ways, he's a really good organizer. He's really good right hand man. He's a good guy to help the coach and be there to help him out and keep organized. But he's not necessarily the best like front mouthpiece dealing with the refs or dealing with the players. In fact, he lacks a bedside manner, from what I've heard, as far as like you need to be a little like able to work with them in a certain way. And he doesn't have people skills in the way that it works in that kind of way. He's really good for certain things on a coaching staff, but not necessarily people person things. And that's what's a little bit, let's see. Shane saying, I unsubscribed to Chev when he started going after Fred. Although his tangents are funny, they are disrespectful as fuck. Your content may be critical, but it's never disrespectful, Lex. I appreciate that. So you're making a discernment between the different things we're doing. I really do try and look at it this way. These guys are human beings, first and foremost. They're not just NBA players. They're not just guys that we see on TV. These are human beings, and they have feelings and regular lives just like us. And we all conveniently forget about that. In some ways, online, people think they can just get out of pocket and say whatever the fuck they want about people. And I don't feel like that's fair. I feel like in some ways, if you're going to say what you're going to say, you better be able to cash those checks to a degree. And in some ways, what Fred said this season about we're professionals and you're going to give us opinions on how to do our job when we're professionals at it. Who the fuck are you? I'm not going to tell a doctor how to do neurosurgery. So, what the fuck? I'm not telling my NFL friends how to play in the NFL, and they're not telling me how to play in the NBA. And that's something that fans need to realize. Now, I can do this content and talk about things like this, but it's under the aspects that I understand. I'm just a fan, and I'm not a pro, and I do not understand the NBA at the same level that these guys do. And that's the problem, is when we get arrogant and get in our own heads as content makers that don't fucking play in the NBA, we're wrong. Because we don't know what the fuck we're talking about compared to Chris Boucher or Fred VanVleet. And that's why Chev has kind of stepped in it here. Because you're dealing with he's a professional Chev. You may be a professional YouTuber, but he's a professional basketball player. And he knows basketball better than you. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And that's just where it's at. So I can't get disrespectful in a personal way because I don't fucking know the NBA better than them. That's just the pure facts of it. Excuse me. Duke saying, what about Steven Silas? I guess he would be available after MA took his job. Well, I'm going to guess this. I'm going to guess that Steven Silas is going to go back to being an assistant coach for a little while, and then maybe he'll be a head coach candidate down the road again. In fact, I've heard predictions that he will join the Boston Celtics staff as an assistant coach this summer and become one of the assistants to Joe Mazzulla. So I think he's already got a path laid out for him. The Silas name is big in Boston because of his dad. He played for the Celtics. And I think that the Celtics organization is already making a soft landing spot for Steven Silas to come there and be their assistant coach. So that's what I've heard in the pipeline. Wayne's saying, okay, some context. You only succeed when you fail a lot. Not sometimes, but a lot. Nick Nurse's many faults where players weren't allowed to fail and then learn from their failures. Precious is special. Yes, this makes so much sense. Like, I'm going to fucking do a stream every day. I'll fail at some of them, but some nights I'm going to knock it out of the park. And that's what I'm saying. I want to succeed and fail at what I'm doing here. Just like Chev, you're going to succeed and fail at what you're doing on your channel. And Chris is going to succeed and fail as an NBA player on the court. That's just a part of it. You can't land on success every single time, unless you're a maniac like Michael Jordan, and you just absolutely have to have it. It's going to be tough. You can't be so controlling that you're going to win every single fucking time. You got to, in some ways, the class of a winner or an athlete is how they are grace in losing. And in some ways, learning from losing and having grace in losing is just as important as being a good winner or being a consistent winner. So, I'm totally with you, Wayne. You're right on point today with a lot of your takes on this whole situation, talking about, Nick Nurse and our problems with the bench. For sure. They didn't get enough chances. They needed more chances to fail. So what if they fail? They failed. You get to learn more and you adjust and you make more changes. You don't even learn more from not even playing them, then they're not developing. Blackhawk saying Chris had 33 double-digit points 10 double-digit rebounds, 9 double-doubles, the 44 single-digit points, which includes the 4 0-point games. As the vet on the bench, Chris needs more double-doubles. Well, I mean, the stats don't lie. In the whole history of the franchise of the Raptors, he has the most double doubles off the bench in the whole entire history. So he must be doing something right as a bench player for us, Blackhawk. If he's the leader in double doubles off the bench for the Raptors in our whole entire history, that's through the whole almost 30 years. So, I mean, he must be doing something right. David's saying, well, try playing him more than 21 minutes a night. See what happens. There you go. David's got a good suggestion right there with his Boucher jersey on. Randolph said, NBA rumors, Clippers Kawhi Leonard diagnosed with torn meniscus after a knee injury. You know, some people, it's a really weird situation with the Clippers. Should they blow it up? Should they start trading these guys? Or should they go in a totally different direction? No, it sounds like they're going to continue to just double down on hopefully them being healthy and getting some success one year. I think we've seen the pattern. I think the Clippers have been an absolute fail since Kawhi has come there. And do we feel bad about him leaving Toronto at this point? What if he had done this the whole time while he was here in Toronto and he just made us go through a roller coaster of like, yeah, you have this guy, you could be so good, but it never pans out because the guy is always injured. It would frustrate the hell out of Raptors Nation. In fact, a lot of our fan nation probably would have turned on Kawhi by now and would have been all over him for missing games so much and not being available for the playoffs. Yeah, just imagine what Raptors Nation would be if we were Clippers Nation in regard to Leonard for the last 4 or 5 years. Woo, wouldn't be pretty. Davis saying, and none of this shit, 3 minutes here, 2 minutes. He needs to get some momentum. I think Chris does a good job, even in just a little short burst, because he's just burst energy personified. And he really does allow that for Nick. When he was coming in, he was really would bring up the energy on our team. And it was very much a role that he was utilized for effectively. Maybe the only bench role that was effectively utilized this whole entire year. Chris's energy and rebounding off the bench. Fun guy saying, you'll be shocked by how old Precious actually is. He'll be 24 to start season, while many still think he's like 21. He just doesn't play like it with low IQ holding him back. Is there real potential? All right. I want to break this down real quick. I think that's still very young. I mean, of course, he's not 21 anymore. He's 21 3 years ago. 24 is still very young for a player, and he's still coming up. And listen, the sky's the limit for him. You know what? I don't want to saddle him with a low IQ thing. I don't think that's true. You know, in some ways, there's basketball IQ like Fred and Jakob have, but then there's instinctual basketball IQ that happens in the split second of when you catch the ball. And Precious has good instincts for this. And in some ways, that is part of basketball IQ is split second instincts. And in some ways, he makes the right decisions, has the right inclinations for making the right decision in split second decision times. So I'm not going to get with you on this, labeling Precious as a low IQ basketball player, because there's different kinds of IQ in the game. And he has very high IQ in split second decision making. And I like that about him. That really is promising. Chris comes saying, I'm a fan of Chev, and I agree with a lot of what he says, but I can't agree with what he said about Chris. We all know Nurse wasn't into developing the bench and giving them the confidence they need. Yeah, and specifically saying that Chris didn't do a good job this year, that's just unfair. Like, if I had to say that some guys on this team actually did a good job this year, Chris would be on that list. You know, I think that like OG had a really good year this year also. Chris had a good year. Scotty had a good year. I feel like in some ways you could say Pascal had a fantastic year this year, an amazing year. Siakam had a really good year, honestly. So in some ways, it's not fair. It's not fair what he's doing to Chris. There's other guys on the team that had bad years. Fred had a really bad half of the year, for sure, and he'd admit that. You know, there's other guys on the team that did not have good years, and Chris is not one of them. He's not one of them. David's saying maybe for a positive note, blast from the past, Monday memories, Raptors versus Mavs. Second half monster comeback. We did that one for a Monday memory already, David, in the last 2 years. We've already done that game as a Monday memory before. You can find it in the library. But yeah, we'll definitely do some more positive blasts from the past for our Monday memories for sure. Country Kong saying the year Kawhi played for us was the best season of his career. I saw him play before, but I could not believe the shots he was making. He looked like Michael Jordan. Kawhi really went all out for us. Yeah. Yeah, we maximized the year of Kawhi for us, for sure. We got absolutely the best out of him, considering all the pitfalls and what could have happened with him. Thank God we got what we got. It was amazing. What a dream. What a dream season. Kareem saying, my goodness, as much as I wanted Kawhi to stay, we dodged a bullet. Holy crap, for sure, Kareem Thomas. Good to see you today. Elijah Hutchings, good to see you. 9:30 a.m. every morning. We're talking Raptors here. I will read every single comment. Kenny worries me too. I'm glad I'm not the only one, but there won't be a perfect candidate. Yeah, that's why I'm really kind of looking at all the aspects of it. Like, I really do care about clout with the refs. I feel like that may be one of the most important things that you need in an NBA coach is, do the refs respect him, and will they listen to him, or will they have relationships with them already? Instead of coming in as a new young coach, you have to establish things like getting respect. And in some ways, our team's already trying to establish getting respect for it, in just in general. Do we need the coach to also have to get respect? That's why when we have like a coach like Lenny Wilkins, that's good. At that period of time, Lenny Wilkins was a really good coach for the Raptors. Even if he was a laid back, kind of like didn't do a whole lot with the players, just let him play coach, he had a lot of respect, being the most winningest coach in the NBA history at that time. So it's like, this is a big deal, having a coach that has a name and that is already comes in with respect. And that's why I don't want Jama. That's why I don't want Patrick Mutombo, because these guys won't get any respect if they come in. We need a coach that will get respect from Tony Brothers and Ed Malloy right away. And that's a big, huge factor in what I'm looking at. Kenny Atkinson will get that respect, but is he bought in, and is he going to be wanting to be a Raptors company man for the long term? That's the other thing. We don't want somebody to just come in and be a fuck up, and then we have to fire them and have a coaching carousel for a while. That's something that sucks. You really want to find a good coach like we have the last two, Dwayne Casey and Nick Nurse, and we want a long period of time for them to really try and do what they're trying to do. We don't want to have a really shitty season this year coming up and fire our coach again next offseason. So this is something that's very important, as far as we want somebody who want to be here long term, because they're very successful at being the Raptors coach. So good first comment, Elijah, and I hope I'll see you more in the comments in the morning. Anytime you want to talk Raptors, we're here every day. David's saying, what happened to Logical? Did he get the boot for hopeless grammar? No, I've been in contact with Logical Raptors Fanatic. He's still dropping stuff on Saturdays, but he's, like a lot of people, taking time off away from thinking about the team so much. And he talked to me yesterday, actually. He's going to be back next Monday. So he just wanted to take a couple weeks off, but he is planning his return to the Raptor Freak stream, and he will be back, David. So be ready for him. Elijah's saying people are weird too. Everyone can have free speech, and they're allowed to branch out on things that are off the floor. I don't understand why we try to box NBA guys in. I know. I think this is a proclivity, because we see in sports like the NFL and the NBA try to control their players with rules, like what they can say, what they can wear. And then everybody by extension feels like, well, if the NBA can tell them what they can say by fining them and all this stuff, they feel like they have some power over them too. It's kind of really fucked up and gross. Like, we shouldn't be treating people like they're commodities and that we can tell them what to do just because they play on our favorite sports team. They're human beings, and in a lot of ways, there are lines that need to be drawn. The free speech thing is great, and people should be able to say whatever they want to say. But there's a lot of out of pocket, useless bullshit and just really detrimental, negative, bad stuff too that's put out there that's not helpful and actually can be very damaging. So there's a fine line. It's like you can be putting out bad stuff and under the guise of free speech, and it's racism, or it's just pure hate, or it's just like really bad stuff. And you're saying, oh, that's part of the war right now. This is part of the bullshit with Twitter and Elon Musk. He's trying to be a free speech champion by allowing racists to have a platform to talk on his platform. Well, who fucking needs to give a platform to racists? That's what I'm saying. But he's saying, well, an ultimate free speech platform, the racists get their fair chance to say what they got to say. Within limits. Where is that line? Free speech. And something we're going to have to come more and more to terms and agreement on as a society with our morals and mores, as things change with online and things that are happening with the phenomena of everybody being able to put out their opinions out, and everybody sees them. So it's very interesting. I'm sick of this. I don't want to box the players in. I'm sick of this. People want to punish them because they're millionaires and they play a sport that's fun. Fuck that. They work very hard to get to where they are. It's not all easy and just money and girls and a good life. There's a lot of hard sacrifice and pain and all kinds of stuff involved in being an NBA player. And people conveniently leave all that stuff out. Isaac's saying logical is on holiday, basking in the sun, beach after being amazing all year. Yeah, that's right. And that is what he's doing. He'll be back. Blackhawks saying developing players doesn't mean losing games. We can bail out coaches for a criteria that is part of their primary role. I agree with this. I think that as much as you can do all of it together, you can do it all together. You just got to find the right balance, the right way of doing it. And he just didn't have good balance. There's a very unbalanced team that we played this year, the Toronto Raptors. Very unbalanced, not very balanced. And that was a big, big gripe I had with him. Infamous saying, "Good morning, freaks. You can tell the lack of development of the young guys really bothered Masai. What do you think of Jama as the new coach? I like him for the development, but like I just said, he's not going to have any respect with the refs, and we need that. That may be one of the most essential things that I'm looking for is working with the refs and being able to have respect on the sidelines when they're coaching." And then, obviously, the players buying into them and believing in them and getting behind them and like really getting enthusiastic and excited about playing for this person. If we bring Kenny Atkinson in and he just like is not connecting with the players and he's like not getting Scotty like bought in or Fred or something, this could be a big problem. And like that's a big issue. Like we need somebody that's going to fit this team that is going to get them to play better. And there's a lot of risk with an outside external candidate that they won't take to them the right way and it won't be a good fit. So that's part of the thing you got to suss out. Lumpy saying Masai is making promises and negotiation the contracts. Nick betrayed Masai by not playing them and making Masai look like a liar. Yeah, that whole thing with Thaddeus is really like telling. Really, really telling. I wonder if Chris is going to say something about Thaddeus Young and his contract incentive and why he didn't play. I want to hear Chris talk about this specifically. Lumpy saying, I'd like to hear more about Nate B. That dude had the same reputation when he was in Indy, isolationist, divide and conquer type of leader. Yeah, I don't think listen, he was around on the championship team. He's fiery. He's really competitive. He's really passionate. And I like all those aspects about him. But those description that you just put there, isolationist, divide and conquer type leader, pitting guys against each other, if that's true, I don't like that. I don't want him around the team. I definitely don't. Wayne's saying, hang on, it jumped. You're wrong, Lex. We actually don't, Fido. It's the format. Hard to discuss nuance and contextual details. No damn disagreement here, brother. Fido, what's that? We don't disagree. I'm saying that you and I we go back and forth between whether we there's been times recently where we've respectfully disagreed and it's been fine and there's been no problems, but there's a lot of times where we have the same opinions. I was just saying that we've had differing opinions at different times and it doesn't matter. It's been very respectful discourse either way. But yeah, we agree a lot also too. Infamous is saying it's foolish to keep the same opinion as more info is given. That's right. That's why I like your channel and Chev. You guys are not married to your opinions when more info is revealed. Well, that's part of the problem with today's society is people want to be ideologues and just really follow a very specific way of thinking on everything. And they don't want to come away from it. And if anything contradicts what they think, they'll disregard it and push it away. It's very MAGA thinking. MAGA, the way they think with their cult. And that's why, if you're a scientist, if you're a person who's smart and intelligent, you have to change your opinions as you get new information. And that's a big part of evolving and being a forever learner as you grow older in life. You cannot just be stubborn and know, oh, I know everything. I know this and I know that. No, you need to change your opinions and your beliefs as new information comes. That makes a more well-rounded, intelligent person. And if there's channels out there that have certain things that they really stick to, if there's things that don't jive with it, they'll fight against those instead of actually taking in the new information, the evidence that proves them wrong. They'll just go after the things that prove them wrong instead. And I appreciate that comment, Infamous. It is important for us to be able to readjust how we look at things with new evidence and things that are true about those things, for sure. It's important life skill for everyone. in their everyday lives. Lumpy saying Chev's apology is fake. Anything stated before the word "but" isn't sincere. Oh, okay. Lumpy's not buying into what Chev's saying. I love it. Elijah's saying, I like this platform way more level headed. I needed to find this platform. Awesome, Elijah. Well, this is why I wanted to provide this, because I've been a diehard Raptor fan since the beginning. And I've seen the different stages of our fan nation when there's been very passionate, a lot of people since the championship. And I understand in today's world, there's so much misinformation. There's so much wrong perceptions about things that there is a bit of an information war going on with our team. And my heart is true as far as I'm a passionate Raptors fan that wants the team to succeed. I pick the team over any individual player, but I look at it in a way where we want the Raptors to win more Larry O'Briens. I'm very much on the same page as Masai Ujiri. And people get distracted with their own egos and their own wants and things with the Raptors, that it messes up their message and being clear. So it's very much, that is the most important thing to me, is more passion. It's not me being right. It's the Raptors winning championships. And I will change in any kind of way to get us more towards that. And I think that the way I just talked is how a lot of regular Raptor fans really are. And then there's just a lot of toxic noise on Twitter. There's a lot of toxic stuff on Facebook that's just unnecessary and bullshit. And we needed a sanctuary, a place like this channel, to just be real fans that are positive and want to talk this through a problem solving way instead of attacking and fighting and all this kind of stuff. We want the same thing. And this is a place to meet for people like us in Raptors Nation that are positive fans, want the best for the team, and we just want to work towards solutions and not necessarily like argue and gripe and be like, oh, well, I believe this and this person sucks. I hate Fred. Get rid of Fred and all this kind of stuff. No, fuck all that. That doesn't help our team. We want things that help our team. And I'm glad you found the channel too, Elijah. Please subscribe and please be a regular. We have fun stuff every single day. I don't take any days off. 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 9:30 a.m. every single day. Raptors Freak. That's right. For 2 years almost running. I'm going to keep my streak going. Yeah. And I'm really happy to see you here. M. Jones is saying, Lex, Raps fan, what up? Excited for the new era to begin. M. Jones coming back and saying, what up? Good to see old friend M. Jones, an original, has been around this channel for most of the last 2 years. And see, that's what I'm saying. People may go away for a little while and they'll come back and check in with us. We always have wide open arms to see our old friends come back, like M. Jones. Good to see you today. G saying a torn meniscus can create cysts behind the knees and major inflammation. Kawhi may need surgery, but even that can make things worse. Yikes. Oh, man, those are Steve Ballmer's problems. Those aren't our problems. Those are the Clippers' problems. Thank God, in some ways. Blackhawk saying Nick Nurse was not focused on the bench. He didn't address struggles that Gary and Boucher were having. You know, let's get into the whole fact that he threw those guys under the bus in interviews all the time, like the way he did Precious this year. He did Gary that too at sometimes. And Chris, thrown under the bus in front of the press. So maybe in some ways, Chris is just paying Nick back. He's going to throw him under the bus today on Hustle Play because Nick threw him under the bus a couple times while he was coaching him in the last few years. Yeah, turnabout is fair play. Fucking Nick's going to call him out in his press conference after the game a couple times in the last recent years. Well, fucking Chris can call him out after the game of Nick leaving because he's gone. It's not like he can get retribution against him. If Chris has a gripe against Nick Nurse of something that he did coaching-wise, I'm here for hearing it. And today, Chev may not want to hear it himself, but I'm here to hear it because I want to know the truth. Let's see. Duke saying Jays are an afternoon game today. All right, y'all, check out the Blue Jays. Are is it the Leafs playing tonight? We got to see if the Leafs are playing tonight. No, they're not. Yes, they are. They are playing tonight. No, they're not playing tonight. The Leafs are playing tomorrow night. Okay, they got their next game 5 tomorrow night. Okay. Let me go. You know what, guys? Let's talk about the games tonight for the for the NBA. Miami at Milwaukee is game 5. Of course, Miami is up 3-1 over Milwaukee. This is a very dangerous situation for Milwaukee at this point. The crew chief is James Williams with Sean Wright and Pat Frayer as the other 2 refs. The way it goes is basically this. James Williams and Sean Wright are for Milwaukee. and Pat Frere favors Miami. So that is the way the refs look right now in that game. New York at Cleveland game tonight. New York can close out the Cavs tonight in game 5. John Goble is the crew chief with Kevin Scott and Mitchell Irvin. John Goble and Kevin Scott are both historically favoring the Cleveland Cavaliers. Meanwhile, Mitchell Irvin historically favors the Knicks. So none of these groups tonight are just straight up for one team. There's a little bit of a mix. Lakers at Memphis. Of course, this is a big game, elimination game possibly for the Memphis Grizzlies at home. So they need to take care of business. David Guthrie is the crew chief with Bill Kennedy and Nick Bookert. Now, David Guthrie hugely favors the Lakers. In fact, he's refereed one of their games already in the series, and he absolutely helped the Lakers in that game. So David Guthrie is going to try and help the Lakers close out the Grizzlies today. I'm going to bet. Now, Bill Kennedy, he also favors Bill Kennedy and Nick Bookert, I believe, favor the Grizzlies. So there's 2 refs for the Grizzlies and 1 for the Lakers, the crew chief. Golden State at Sacramento, their game tonight, game 5, with their series tied 2-2. Tony Brothers is the crew chief. Mark Lindsay and Tyler Ford are the other 2 refs. Tony Brothers actually favors the Sacramento Kings, guys. Now, Mark Lindsay, this is crazy. His favorite team, like statistic-wise, he has the highest winning percentage for the Golden State Warriors, and his team that has the lowest winning percentage is the Sacramento Kings. So he is the epitome of the most bias towards the Warriors against the Kings out of these refs. And then finally, Tyler Ford also favors the Golden State Warriors. So there you go. There's your ref report for tonight and what's going on with them refs and that stuff. Yeah. All right, let's keep going with the comments. Monique saying W Streamlex all around from every aspect. Let's go Raptors. Keep at it. Seriously, good times await. Yes, Monique. Yes. Fun guy saying, laugh out loud. What? Wow, I'm shocked to hear that for the first time. I don't know what you're hearing. You may have to elaborate, fun guy. Wayne saying Precious is similar to Delano. They think very fast, and their synchronicity with their body movements isn't quite there yet. That takes time. Yeah. But the instincts are pretty good. Like, he doesn't make as many turnovers as OG used to. Seriously, OG made turnovers every other play down the court, and Precious doesn't really do that. He maybe makes a turnover every 5 plays, but OG used to turn the ball over a lot in the same kind of situation when he was at that point in his career. Fun guy saying, yes, Wayne, but it goes beyond that with Precious. He has the clear lack of awareness of where to be in rotation, switching, actual reaction, play analyzing, etc. Delana knows where to close that to that low IQ. Let's just be fair to Precious. Maybe with better structure and a new coach, maybe we'll see some different stuff from Precious. I don't think he looks as lost out there as you are putting it, fun guy, in some ways. I think that Precious knows what he's doing a bit better than what you're giving him credit. Fiercely saying, unbalanced, but yet we made it to 500 record. Imagine once we will all be on the same page and collaborate in a structured and pleasant environment. I know. They're on a springboard to go up. And like Masai said, this year has shown more parity in this league than ever. And that's a big factor in why our team was so mid this year. Everybody's pretty good, but we didn't play to the level that we're actually supposed to play at. And we were still mid. So we're going to be a good team next year. We get it all figured out. Cool Cat saying, Raptor Freak with Clippers, the North remembers. Yes. Shirkan saying, thank you for the mod. Nick Nurse changed when he got with Clutch. Now not getting Houston job either. He really messed up and took for granted what he had here. Peaked early in 2019-20 and became complacent the last 2 seasons. I can find no lie in what Shirkan's saying here. This is very fair. I really do think Clutch has something to do with things. And he did take for granted what he had going here. And he didn't realize how easy it was to fuck that up. Monique is saying Earl Watson took down his hashtag Toronto Raptors on Twitter. Does that say much, you think, Lex? That could be a tell for sure, Monique. I could see that. Like, it could be that he's on his way out and he's not the next coach for us. So we'll have to see. You know, I'm open to whatever. Once again, in these kind of situations, we just got to trust Masai and hope that he does the best thing for our team going forward. Fun guy saying, but I love Precious regardless. In his defense, and his athletic attributes are beautiful. I think he will excel in a less complicated Nick Nurse system this year. Yeah, he will excel in like more structure and knowing exactly where he's got to be. In some ways, Nick was running them in a free-form, improvisational kind of way And in some ways, that causes confusion because in some ways you get to make the decision in the moment, and some of that will mess up the spacing. In the last 2 years, that was a big gripe with our guys, is spacing. Some of the spacing was not right in the last 2 years, especially last year. And we had to figure out the spacing a bit better. The spacing was better this year, but that's an indication of guys kind of freeform jazzing it out there. And Nick said it himself in his coaching seminar in Hungary last year. He looks at the NBA and basketball as like jazz music, that you got to fill in the notes and improvise and make it up as you go. That is his basic philosophy in coaching, is like jazz. It's like playing jazz. He's not writing the music ahead of time on a piece of paper and like playing it from the musical notes. No, he's playing it while he's playing it. He's making it up. And that's his coaching style. And that's what a big problem is. Fiercey saying if Earl leaves, Rico may leave as well. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. Well, we'll have to see. Whatever happens is going to happen. And we can't be afraid of things happening just because of things and do things out of fear. We need to do things because it's the right best decision for our team. Blackhawk saying Nick Nurse didn't change because of clutch. He changed because his success got to his head. Yeah, it may be a symptom of it. I mean, clutch may be that little devil on his shoulder that was saying all the bad things to him. Masai's on this side saying things from the team side, and then he has Rich Paul on this side saying things from this side. It could be that little devil was Rich Paul, and Masai Ujiri was the little angel on his other shoulder, and it could have been like that, and he fed into, feeding the ego and things like that. You get up on stage with the new power generation, Nick, at the Jazz Festival in Toronto, and all of a sudden, well, you think you can just take on the world. You're not Prince, bro. We heard you sing Purple Rain. No, we love you, Nick. And once again, I think that we're going to have to honor Nick more and more in the future. We'll see what happens with where he lands first. But he is always going to be somebody we're going to need to put respect on and talk in a high way about. Because in some ways, he did so much for our team, even if it was disappointing near the end. And we do feel like he might have sabotaged our team. So, all right, let me just make sure I'm not missing anything that I wanted to go over today on my things and stuff. Definitely check out Chris Boucher's Hustle Play podcast coming out later today. Truth Bombs coming big, coming in strong. We're going to have to check out what he has to say. Kareem saying, I guess Mike D'Antoni as a head coach and Nash as an assistant is off the table. I feel like Nash could veer our guards in the right direction and D'Antoni could take care of the rest. D'Antoni's too old. Like, if he was going to head coach anymore, he would have gotten a head coach job already. In fact, he's not even an assistant anymore. He doesn't like traveling with teams. He's basically just a consultant for the team that he's with right now. And he is still involved in an NBA team, but just as a consultant. He's not even a full-fledged assistant. So he doesn't travel anymore. So D'Antoni is totally off the table, Kareem. And Steve Nash had such a bad experience in the Nets. I don't think he has no reason to ever want to coach again. Seriously, what does he have to prove? In fact, he's more likely to make himself look like more of a loser if he comes back and takes another coaching job, and it's an absolute disaster also. His legacy as a player doesn't need to be tarnished by him as a coach. And in some ways, he's already kind of had some of that. It's not totally his fault, and we can say that. But if he goes somewhere else and he has really bad stuff happen, it's going to look like it's not going to look good for him. I mean, guys like Magic and Larry and Isaiah, they did coach after they quit playing, and it didn't work out. And this is a similar kind of thing. I know Nash doesn't want to have anything to do with Toronto personally because he told me. I asked him, come play for the Raptors in 2000. And he said, Lexi, I will never play for the Toronto Raptors because it's the Canadian team, and it's like the only team in the league at this point because the Grizzlies had just moved. And he's like, it's too much pressure. He didn't want that kind of pressure being the best Canadian player on the Canadian team in the league. And he's a West Coast guy. He took that Brooklyn job. That's out of character because he's very much a West Coast Pacific time zone kind of person. And he went to Brooklyn kind of against his own time clock kind of like way of life, being a West Coast kind of person. So anyway, y'all, thanks for watching me today. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. If you're an NBAChev fan and you found me, if you're Chris Boucher, thank you for coming in here and checking my channel out. Whatever it is, please like, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate all the following and the time you guys spend talking to me. I hope we figure things out. Tomorrow will be a Thursday think tank. We'll talk more about the coaching options and the ever-changing landscape of the coaching options as more information comes out. We'll also be reacting, of course, to the Chris Boucher Hustle Play podcast, the whole entirety of it. And I'll probably go and look at that All the Smoke interview with Jerry Stackhouse and let you guys know where I think he's at with his head and possibilities of him coming here to be the next coach of the Toronto Raptors. All right, Isaac Campbell, we love Boucher. Yes, that's true. Christopher, you are a great Canadian. I want you on Team Canada. I want to see you excel and do more badass things. Rodman 2024, get on those boards and show them how it's done. Modern day worm. That's right. You go, Chris Boucher. We love you. All right, y'all. Let's go Raptors.